Is it working? Thank you. I'm gonna post my swipe up Instagram right now. I do the swipe up, get all the cute girls in here, and that's hot. That was hot. Oh my god, yo, look how hot I look. What do you guys think? Did I do it? That look good? That look good? All right, everybody, I'm gonna get Asmon in here, dude. Placebo, man. Thank you for the 25 gifts and subs. Yo, what's up, Zach? You ready to go?
I'm gonna get some food and I'll be back in probably 5 or 10 minutes.
All right, cool. We'll be ready. We'll be waiting.
Alrighty.
Guys, here's the one. Stop screaming. Imagine me streaming for 4 fucking years, working my ass off to make my perfect reality, and some motherfucker walks up to me and tells me to stop screaming.
Right. That make it huge.
Yo, dude.
Like your massive unit.
What up?
Somebody just told me I have a big dick.
Ah, dude, there it is.
It's true, dude. I got a question for you first, though, when we start things off.
Okay.
You remember, what was the scariest thing when you were growing up as a kid? Around any corner, you felt like you were going to be able to sink in.
Wasp.
Quicksand.
No, why? No, I never was afraid of quicksand. Here's why. Think of how fucking skinny I am. I just walk right over it. Like, there's no way. There's literally no way it would ever get me.
You weren't scared of quicksand?
No, because I knew I could get right over it. I'm too skinny.
I don't even think quicksand is real now. I think quicksand is like coronavirus, dude.
Yeah, I heard that. I went to a NASCAR rally and they were saying the same fucking thing, dude. All that shit's all fake, man.
Hey Rich, have you
what did they say? Reveal your rectum.
Net ID so you can play with them.
Reveal your rectum.
You guys should get Kevin Jordan, classic WoW designer.
Dude, that was so good.
Sometime he just did.
I am turning off text to speech right now. I forgot. But that was actually a very good text to speech. It said we should get Kevin Jordan on Allcraft one of these days. Quicksand is not fake. Okay, after the viewer call-ins...
It's not. I watched a thing about it. It was on YouTube like fucking 2 years ago. I remember watching it. It's not fake.
I am doing I'm doing a whole... Was it about
because like it gets wet and then like you sink in it.
Wait, who is that in chat who knows my movie idea? Did I tell you guys the idea about D-listers? Okay, remind me at the end of the stream, like after the viewer call-ins, I am going to look up the quicksand shit on stream, and we'll figure out if quicksand's real or not, because I actually genuinely don't know. Wait, dude, did I ever tell you the one idea for a movie I have that I'm gonna write one of these days called D-listers?
Which one? No, maybe not.
So, way back when I first started, when I first started doing everything, I maybe had like 200, 500 followers on Twitter. I thought I was a pretty big deal, but you know.
Yeah.
I got added to a group DM with a bunch of random famous people that had their DMs open, like Les Stroud, Bear Grylls, like a bunch of the survival guys, a few other like random people. And the person who created the group said, "I'm glad that I gathered you all here today," then posted a picture of their penis and left the group. Then I went, does this happen to you guys often? And all of the sudden, they're all talking to me. Like, we're all cracking up. We're all talking about it. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, I'm talking to, like, fucking random celebrities right now. Like, this is fucking wild. Yeah. And then it hits me. I'm like, wait, they all have a decent amount of followers. I have 500 followers. I very easily could have just made a fake burner account, created the group, and added myself into the group so I could talk to them, post a picture of my penis, and then leave, and then get off on the fact that they all saw my penis and I'd be on the burner account. And that was when I
talking to them about your own penis.
Exactly. And that is when I got the idea for the movie that I call D-listers. An unlikely hero decides to move up the ranks in Hollywood the only way he knows how, with pictures of his cock. Slowly, with several burner accounts and his main account, which he is growing, he puts random people with open DMs in Hollywood into group conversations, posts a picture of his penis, and gets roles in movies. He becomes one of the most famous people in all of the land. He gets everything that he's ever desired by this method of showing his phallus, even the love of his life. She adds him to a group and he defends against himself in the group. He's like, you creep, leave her alone. White Knights, she becomes his girlfriend, but that's where it all goes wrong. On the night where he's about to sleep with her for the first time, finally, he takes off all of his clothes, his whole body's revealed, she sees his dick and she goes, it was you! His whole world falls apart. Will he bounce back? Will his life be over? Find out when I release the movie D-listers.
Oh my fucking god, dude.
It's pretty good, right?
I'd watch that.
It's a good idea for a movie. Let's see if anybody else has any good ideas, guys. We're going to start pulling people in. We'll start taking some questions. So we're going to randomly select people. You guys can join the Discord right now, and we'll pull you up. S-Fan's brother. I trust this person. Hello, S-Fan's brother.
Oh, hey.
What?
Wait, what?
It's about time it got me in here. Hold on, let me change my name. Hey, it's been a while.
It's Jay the Bard! He fucking tricked us, dude! What the fuck, dude?
Oh, what?
You son of a bitch! You son of a bitch! Fuck you, Jay!
Oh my god.
What do you mean? Hey, I get mistaken for Esfon's brother, his cousin. Dude, at BlizzCon, freaking someone's like, hey, can you help me find your brother? Like, my brother? Yeah, Esfan. You're both Persian. What do you mean? Because we're both Persian, all of a sudden he's my brother?
Dude,
that's how it works.
I was cracking
That's how
up.
it works.
I randomly tuned into S-Fan's stream, like it was like the middle of the stream. You know, usually I try to like catch at the beginning or something like that. And he goes, there's a text-to-speech going, don't you get upset when people turn your family members into rugs? And he goes, dude, they don't make Persian rugs out of Persian people. I started laughing so hard.
Okay, first off, I'm gonna let you guys know that's actually a lie. They do. Why do you think? Why do you think?
Why do you think they're so rare?
Why do you think they're so expensive, dude?
Wow.
Persian rugs come from real Persians, man. All right. So I got a little thing for you guys here.
Okay.
More so, I guess a question of theory. So, for the most point, narrative should never really, drive what the gameplay, right? Necessarily for like mechanics. Yeah. So, in this expansion, we saw something that the dev team didn't do before, which was they added in new class race combinations with the allied races, and of course Pandarans, and to become Death Knights, right?
Yep.
So, do you guys feel that since they did something like that, which is usually an expansion like feature, right? He's like, oh, hey, this expansion is going to have that. Can you guys see something along the lines of that happening again? Because with especially some of the things they've kind of like teased now, with some of the characters we might end up seeing, I kind of feel like they might end up doing that. Like, I honestly feel like we're going to see something along the lines of like undead paladins, given like some type of arc that has to do with Kalia and Arthas like meeting up in the Shadowlands.
Undead paladins sound pretty cool, but I feel like to some degree it's kind of doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in the lore, and it's kind of like having a I don't know, it's like a weird.
I like the fact that you can't play every single combination.
It's like being a meat-eating vegan.
Meat-eating vegan?
Like, yeah, it's like some things just don't like. This is like a non sequitur. It doesn't work. It's an oxymoron. Like it just doesn't fit together.
Undead paladin actually can make sense in the lore.
Well, you want to hear my like pyromancer like theory?
All right, let's go. Yeah.
Okay, so like I'm gonna say right now, just for chat, I am a hardcore casual when it comes to World of Warcraft. I care about the lore. I go do my heroic. I don't give a crap after that. So you know what? I don't give a shit, right? But when it comes to some of the lore stuff, this is something I know some people don't talk about. So with Sylvanas, you know, now no longer being part of the Horde, the Valkyr all leave her, right? Oh, sorry, they leave with her. Yeah. So the Valkyr are the reason how, like, the undead are basically able to resurrect people. There's no other method that they have, at least to my knowledge, from what I've looked for, how they are resurrecting any more undead. The only other cases of someone that could resurrect the undead is, well, formerly would have been Bolvar, right? Or Arthas, too. And probably would be the Valkyr under Odin. So the only other case of an undead being resurrected is Kalia. Because Kalia was killed, spoiler, by Sylvanas during the events in Before the Storm. And she was resurrected through the light. I think it was through in the Netherlight Temple. They kind of hinted at some crap like this with what's that priest, the undead priest's name?
Aldonis?
Adonis? No, I think it's like something. Alonzus Fowl.
Yeah, Alonzus. Yeah, there you go. Something
where
like
there was this whole thing about him between him and God, I can't think of the paladin's name for the life of me. Turellian, about him in the spiel about the light, right? So what I think is going to end up happening is, and again, this is just some crackpot theory.
Yeah,
You know, one of those things where it's you're bored. It's 3:00 in the morning.
You're just on crack.
No, you're not. You're not taking crack. You're taking out. You know when you wake up at 3:00 in the morning and you just want to stay in bed, but then your body's like, dude, I have to take a really massive shit because you had some Taco Bell, and oh my god, it was the worst choice you could have done. But at the same time, you're still happy that you wouldn't got Taco Bell because it's filling.
Yes,
I'm talking about those moments.
Okay. Yeah, I can relate.
So with those kind of moments, I mean, it is like crack, right? It's Taco Bell. But anyways. So I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, okay, the whole afterlives thing, showing the whole thing with Uther and Arthas. I'm like, that means there's got to be some type of arc. There's going to be some type of arc where we're going to see Arthas in the Shadowlands, and I think what they're going to do is they're going to have this whole thing with Kalia, who doesn't really want to lead the Forsaken, but she's going to find Arthas and find some type of redeeming thing that's going to make her want to lead. And because Sylvanas, is evil and all this stuff, they're going to have some junk where they're going to be she's now the leader of the Forsaken with Lillian Voss, and they're using the light to, help the Forsaken, and boom, undead paladins.
I hope that you're wrong, just because.
I hope I'm wrong too.
Yeah, just because, I feel like it is kind of nice to have some of the stuff be limited. Even if there isn't a lore reason, I just think that it's overall it's just it kind of makes people play things that they maybe wouldn't have otherwise.
But do you still think though, even if take that whole theory out, right? Do you think they would end up doing something like that again with adding more expansion, promoted features late into the expansion now? Because we saw that again twice with BFA with the add-on for the mounts, and then of course the race class combos.
I think that your theory would be one that would make sense, right? If they were going to do it. I just hope that they don't, right? But yeah, no, I think that they're moving definitely in the direction where they're adding more and more of those combos, right? And I think that it's just an attempt to make people happy, and it's one of those things where it makes people happy and it usually doesn't make that many people mad. Does that make sense? I feel like every time that they add it, it's if they add the ability to play a Pandaren Death Knight, it's there's one person who's this is fucked up. What the heck is this lore, dude?
That's me.
Yeah, there's that one person. But at the end of the day, most of the people who it doesn't really, it allows some people to have fun and it doesn't really bother other people.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, right? But because even with the other part of that is well, hey, if they're gonna add in undead paladins, what are they going to add in for the Alliance? I'm it's simple. They'll just freaking add in Night Elf Paladins and try to make it tie into something with the counter to being the Night Warrior or some crap like that.
Yeah, there's a Night Warrior and the Light Warrior.
Yeah, exactly. But I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that. I didn't want to take too much time.
That's a good question. Thank you, man.
All right. But one thing I do got to ask before I go. So this one's just for a future project, and please don't say, Grizzly Hills, because I get this all the time.
Sea shanty.
What? I already, I uploaded.
I saw it. Yeah, I only got to click one video when I'm playing games now. I listen to this one song the whole time.
All right, so I'm about to finish this album. What song from a zone in World of Warcraft would you guys want to see, or what tune as the final piece to the album?
How about Invincible?
Invincible?
Yeah, how about that?
You know what? I'll make it happen.
I still think the best song in the entire game is the Karazhan organ song. Dun, 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 dun.
I'm glad you like that one.
Dun, 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 dun,
but I gotta say, I'll do it, but I'm gonna have to add that little intro of Asmon reacting to my Lich King voice. That thing made my day.
Yeah, I'm. Oh my god.
Anyways, I'll get ready to go.
All right,
doing
man.
what you guys do, and
thanks for showing up, man. Appreciate it.
What was I gonna say? Oh, and yeah, chat. I'm not S-Fan's brother. Stop freaking mistaking me for his brother. I'm not his cousin. I'm not his brother.
Well,
I'm not his cousin.
Glad you said that. They're gonna stop now. Yeah, they're never gonna
stop.
say that again.
All right, love you guys. All right, peace.
Peace, man. Yo, by the way, is it S-Fan's birthday today?
Yeah.
No way, dude. Oh shit, dude. Me and S-Fan basically have the same birthday. We should do like a giant fucking party, dude.
Okay.
Whenever I actually go, I have to figure out where I'm staying.
We'll be giving out gifts. We can give all of each other coronavirus.
Yeah, we'll all spit in each other's cups at the beginning of the party just to make sure that like we're all on a level playing field.
Yeah.
Oh man. I hope everybody in the chat's been staying safe.
Of course they are.
Hello, yep, I'm down to fuck. How are you doing? Yep, I'm down to fuck. Oh, it's DMF. I thought it was DTF. I'm so sorry. Oh my god, I'm so stupid. I'm so sorry. Wait, did you change that?
1 second. I might need to mute the stream.
Uh-huh.
Okay, hello.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing, DTF?
Dang, I didn't know I was gonna get in here. Wow.
Well, you're in. How you doing?
Doing good, just playing the game while listening to the stream, kind of like a podcast.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, man. What's your question?
See, that's the thing. I didn't really have a question.
All right. Well, thanks for watching. I appreciate it.
Hey, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Is that your roommate?
No, that's my brother.
Hi.
Stepbrother or regular brother?
That's my regular brother.
Okay.
Hello.
Why does that matter, Rich?
Stepbrother, what are you doing here?
Okay, dude.
Well, I kind of do have a question. I was thinking about, like, what would you guys think about, or, like, WoW revamped, right? Like the whole time skip thing.
Yeah.
Do you think it would be like an actual successful idea?
Yeah, maybe not. The thing is, like, it depends on the content. Like, it sounds cool, right? Yeah, it sounds cool, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it would be cool. I keep an open mind too, but not like super crazy into it.
Here's the one thing that's like definite, right? The code of this game is very old. Yeah. And I think that one of the advantages is like not having to work off that 15-year-old like net code and shit like that anymore would be fantastic. If they found any way to do that, I'm sure that it would be less of a headache for them when they try to make new stuff. That is the one undeniable positive. The negatives are the developers who have made a lot of mistakes would then be making the entirety of the game, so you wouldn't be falling back on some of the old classics. Nostalgia that's pulled the game along for a very long time would then potentially be out the window. There would be a disconnect between a character that you worked on for 15 years and what you're playing every single day. Like there are a bunch of different things that obviously would be downsides. But yeah, I definitely see the upsides in it, and I kind of wish that we could just get fresh code in this game, right? And it didn't have to communicate with 15-year-old code.
Do you think the old code leads to the lag that we get when we're like 40v40?
To some degree.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it helps, right? I'm by no means a network engineer, and neither's Asmon. Yeah. But like, I think even when you play, like, you can play like kind of like some like crappy game that doesn't have nearly the development behind it that World of Warcraft does, and it can handle like a lot of different situations with multiplayer environments. So I definitely think it would help.
Do you think like what they did with like Warsong or Arathi Basin, if they did that with like, I don't know, the entirety of Azeroth, do you think that would be good?
No.
No,
it's too much work for too little of a reward. Unless they want to revamp the entire world to be relevant at max level, I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good question, though.
I guess that's all.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
What does DMF stand for?
It actually means Karai Flame, Dark Mythical Flame.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought it was DTF, dude. I'm sorry I tried to have sex with you.
I know. That's what my old friend used to say.
Yeah, it's all good, dude. Well, it's nice to meet you, DMF.
Thanks for coming on, dude. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Peace, dude.
Peace.
Why didn't you ask about the PvP?
Well, I guess I'll leave myself. I thought I was gonna move out.
You know, it's all good. See you later.
Dude,
what'd you ask? Yo, what'd you ask that bald motherfucker, dude? Yo, I remember the other thing that I want to do right when we get to Texas. You ready for this, dude? You're gonna be stoked, dude. Guess what comes out September 18th? New Magic the Gathering set.
Oh, shit. I'll be down. You want to do a draft?
Get a box, get Reevy to drive down. Fucking smack. Oh, shit. I only watched you watch it. I actually haven't watched the new video for Heist.
It's not that good.
It's not that good?
You're talking about the new
PoE?
Afterlives?
Oh, no. Oh. Afterlives I heard wasn't good. PoE, did you think PoE looked cool?
No. It seems like every league sounds either cool or stupid to me. But, like, for example, the Metamorphosis League, I didn't really get, like, super hyped about it or anything. I was like, oh, maybe I'll play this. The Heist League, it seems like there's a lot of menus. Now, one thing I liked about Metamorphosis is it was just like, click, boom, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'll play it or not. I usually decide if I'm going to play a PoE league, like, 5 days into the league.
Yeah, I feel like every time that I like completely lose my life to a PoE league, you've also been like, you're like, yo, is it any good? And I'm like, yeah, and you're like, all right, fuck stream.
I've got to take a break.
I got to take a mental health break. Just go on Dr. K and be like, yeah, dude, I think I need to just disappear and play PoE. I feel like every time a league looks shit, it ends up being really good.
Yeah, like Harvest.
Harvest was fucking awesome. It looked so. I don't know. I thought Harvest looked kind of cool. Does Rich still not have Invincible? Yes, I still do not have Invincible. It's a lot of fun to farm the same mount every single night for my entire life. Panda Man. Hello, Panda Man. Panda Man 7411. You are on the line. What do your fingers smell like? I'm not smelling my fingers. I'm touching my mustache. Panda Man? Asmon, make a panda sound so he knows we're here.
Slow down.
Hey.
There we go. What's up?
I have a question. I'm very new to WoW. I was wondering what will probably be a good class in Shadowlands for, I guess.
I'll stop you there. Nobody knows.
For a new player though, is that kind of your question?
Yeah.
So if you want to play range, I would recommend Hunter. If you want to play melee, I would recommend Demon Hunter. But if you want re-ask that question closer to release, like after the pre-patch. Come back on Allcraft and ask again, and we'd be happy to re-answer. But with what there is right now, I think that's usually a safe bet. I think can't start with Demon Hunter. Wait, yes you can now, right? But I think Demon Hunter is like an easy thing to start with. Like if you're just trying to play something that's not going to melt your brain, I think those are a good place to start. And then from there, you just figure out whatever you vibe with the most, right? Because like for example, it took a lot of years for Asmon to figure out that he was going to like he played a warrior when he was like fucking 4 years old, and then it was like, okay, I'm a warrior for the rest of my life. You'll find that class on your own that resonates with you. Just start with something nice and easy. Like the first thing I ever played was Hunter. I played it at my friend's house on his computer, which I think is against the terms of service, but back then there were no rules. There was only fun. And then I got back home and I leveled a druid. I spent about 4 months trying to figure out how to do the aquatic form quest. Then I re-rolled a warlock, didn't do a single quest, and I got to 60 solely by grinding. That journey made me a warlock for life. You'll have that journey yourself. Like you'll have that your own journey doing that.
Okay. And that's the only question that I had.
Hell yeah, dude. It was nice meeting you, Panda Man.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I like your stream, Asmon, by the way.
Oh, thank you, man. I fucking appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And another question for Asmon.
Right.
The PC, who's it from?
I don't know if I'm supposed to say it.
Okay.
I'm not against saying. I just don't know.
Okay. Well, that's it.
It was nice meeting you, and if you're ever looking for a place to hang out after Asmon's stream, you can check me out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will. Have a good day.
You as well, Pam.
All right, you too. Talk to you later. Peace.
See ya.
Someone got you a computer?
Yeah, I think I'll make one for me.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's very cool. I was gonna try. Oh fuck! I fucked up. I was gonna try to get the new graphics card.
You're gonna send me one?
Can you tell them that you need two? Be like, hey.
I was doing.
I'd be like, hey, I'm working on like this like real crazy computer. I need like 2 or 3. You know, you get one for S-Man too, dude. It's his birthday.
Yeah.
Dude, if you get those for free, then you don't need to get us gifts.
Oh yeah, you're right. Wow, that is true. Damn.
There you go.
Okay.
That's a good idea. Because, oh, fuck me in the asshole. All right, let me pull in another caller. I fucked up. Damn leech. Dude, if it is a leech to when your friend gets free shit, go, yo, can you get another one for me? I'm going to be a leech till the day that I die.
Yeah, everybody does that. Like, even I do that.
Dude,
if Rich Kid's going to get something from somebody, I'm like, yo, can they send another one?
Dude, my first reflex as a human being is to try to get as much free shit as possible.
That's why I go to conventions.
Oh, yeah, dude. You know how many pens I got, dude?
I find like it's not as fun now because like they'll give me stuff because I'm like a streamer. But it's like not as fun because like whenever you go in before, they just give you stuff, period. It was way better.
I think like the real fun part is when you just finessed for it, you know? Like you talk to somebody at the table for a little while and you get like the extra piece of candy at the end.
Yeah, they give you like a poster.
You're like, yeah, it was nice talking to you. By the way, you take another one. And you're like, oh shit, dude. Double loot. Alright. DK Main.
Uh-oh.
Hello, DK Main. DK Main? Bonus roll, yeah, dude, exactly. Yo, what's up, DK Main? How you doing?
Not too bad. How about you?
Great, man. I'm gonna turn you up just a little bit.
So, my question is, what's the worst system in WoW that nobody talks about?
Probably Raid Finder, but I mean, a lot of people talk about it. Like, I don't know, besides me, I don't see a lot of people that talk about it. And I think that also it's just like a lot of the catch-up mechanisms and stuff because it invalidates the previous content in the expansion.
Do you feel like they should just rip it out, or how do they really fix that nowadays with everybody? Or I guess a lot of people loving it still.
I don't. I think if you remove the gear from it, nobody would do it, which implies that people don't do it because they like it. They do it for rewards. So I think that, and this is what happened with WoD, for example. So what I would do is I'd basically just make it to where the gear had like a very, very low baseline that didn't go up throughout the expansion, and that would make it to where people wouldn't have to feel like they had LFR gear replacing their old raid gear.
Somebody said archaeology, which was kind of like the first place.
Archaeology actually is a terrible system right now. It was pretty well done in Legion, I would say. Overall, it had quests and everything like that. There was a lot of time put into it. But BFA Archaeology, I got the Pristine Artificer achievement or whatever for getting all the pristine artifacts in BFA. It's fucking garbage. It's actually like, it's crazy to look at something as small and like minute as archaeology and see that even there Legion was better.
Yeah,
by mile.
I remember when you were doing the archaeology thing. Like we were in the call, we were just like chilling in a call, and I think I was playing PoE, and I was having a good time, and you were just like, I was like, what's going on? You're like, I'm fucking grinding archaeology. You've been online for like fucking 10 hours. I think archaeology it's like a weird thing to look at as being one of the worst systems because you can just avoid it. So I don't think it really like gets that much shit. Like it's really out of the way, but yeah, it's definitely not a great system, but it's had a lot of potential at different times. And I think that stuff
even rewards for it nowadays, because I feel like I haven't even like seen anything or anybody even talking about it. It's not like pet battles, which is like teach its own, but like archaeology is just kind of like off in the corner. Seems like.
Yeah, like it's something that the game doesn't even point at to tell you to do, which is why I'm like, you can really just avoid it. Like to do archaeology, you actively seek out doing archaeology and like something, like you kind of know the reason that you're there. The game was like, this was a mistake, we're gonna let it die. I feel like in a lot of ways, but they don't want to remove any of that content. I feel like anything that does cause you to explore the world though in a cool way is something that could be good for the game, right? Which is why like I kind of bring up archaeology.
They could do plenty of things. They could do what they could do, for example, is like, let's say, think of like the wetlands area, not wetlands, excuse me, Loch Modan area, where there's like the unearthed, like halfway like Statue of Liberty, like that area with the trogs. What if they did there was like an archaeology quest that you could complete there for like doing archaeology just in that small area that would then reward you with a removed from the game item that was from the original Loch Modan? That'd be cool. And so there's plenty of ways that they could do it, but they're not really inventive and they don't want to put any effort into it. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like especially with like the lore and how all that is nowadays not really being in the game as much, like maybe archaeology would be like a good opportunity to at least tell some of the story, especially with the game being as old as it is and the story being as like long as it is now.
That's a really good perspective, like using archaeology to tell some of the extended stories.
Yeah, because that's obviously how we use archaeology in real life, so it's like it could actually be the same thing, which would actually make sense too.
I like that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Sorry, I'm so distracted by all the penises, dude.
Yeah, I was looking at that too, actually.
Did you like what you see? Yeah, you brought up a lot of really good points. Dude, I literally I looked at the chat and I was like, I wonder if any of my mods are here right now. And then I looked in the chat and like the head mod, chief of security, was just Pepe laughing. Tyrion was just Pepe laughing, dude. Literally just like fucking, oh my god, dude, stop.
If I could ask like a secondary question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So obviously I'm a DK main, and I am sitting at like 1700 in 3v3 right now, and I feel like I just get cucked by demon hunters like literally the entire time I try to play the game, and to the point that I just wonder why I'm not playing a demon hunter. So what would be like, what is the fix for like just demon hunters? Just I don't know if they're good at like higher rating, but it feels like this rating is just every single game, and they just like 1v3 everybody like every game. How do we fix that?
The problem with demon hunters is that like at a very, 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 very high level, like I'm talking like top 100, top 500 people on the ladder, demon hunters are underrepresented. But the problem is that for like getting 2400 or getting 2100, demon hunters are overrepresented. So it's a class that has like a high skill floor, and not really as much of a skill ceiling either. And I think that's one of the big reasons why it's so frustrating to play against them, because every single one of them you're going to play against is going to have like some basic level of competency. Now, like what they need to do to fix Demon Hunters is to remove passive avoidance from them. So like they're removing Blade Dance, giving you the 1 second of dodge, which I'm very glad for. And I think you only get it whenever you're in Metamorphosis form. And also, I think they should tone down the amount of Soul Leech they have, which they've already done multiple times. But the problem is that in PvP, like they're so mobile, and they do so much damage. It's very hard to control them.
That's definitely how I felt too, because like even as a Death Knight, like obviously I don't have much when it comes to like stickiness, but I have like my grip, and like if I'm trying to kill a Demon Hunter, there's nothing, like if I grip them, like they're just gonna fly away again.
Yeah.
And if I'm trying to like peel, same thing, like they're gonna kill my healer either way.
Yeah.
And then if I actually focus them, if I can actually lock them down, then they're just gonna jump in the air and like one shot me or some bullshit. So.
Yeah, they're really strong. It's definitely true. I mean, like, I think that Demon Hunters are like one of those classes that are just very hard for Blizzard to balance, because it's hard for them to know like kind of where they want the class to lie. And also with so much innate like movement and abilities they have, it's harder for them to balance the Demon Hunter in Arena, because you're kind of also balancing the the rest of the game at the same time.
Do you feel like future class design could be like kind of similar to Demon Hunters? Because like obviously if you look at their kit, like it's kind of obvious that it came out a couple years ago versus like some of the older classes. Do you feel like that would be like a good move for like class design in the future, or is it just too dynamic?
I think Demon Hunter is a very well designed class overall. I think so. The problem isn't necessarily that it's not well designed. I think it is, especially for like what Blizzard intended Demon Hunter to be, because they wanted Demon Hunter to be just easy to play. And I think they even said that they want all the spells to fit on an action bar. But I think that it's really a fact that other classes don't have, like, they haven't been modernized to the level that Demon Hunter is, and Demon Hunter is just kind of a step above them. And I think that it's kind of the same dynamic that we had with DKs, where DKs just had so many more tools than a lot of the other classes did in Wrath of the Lich King, that it just made them like an actual hero class.
That makes sense, yeah, because I mean, back in Wrath, like, I was shitting on everybody, It's the good old days. Now it's like monks and demon hunters, which are obviously the two newer classes. They're definitely the most like dynamic and have like the most like kind of fluid play style.
Yeah, I think that's basically what it is. Is that it's just it's a new class, and because it's such a new class, it makes it a lot easier for Blizzard to like design it in a philosophy of like nowadays. And I think that now, like, computers are better, like players are better, so the game's designed with that in mind. But if you compare that to like back in the day, it's not the case.
Makes sense. All right, well, I'm gonna head out. Thanks for
all right, dude.
chatting.
Yeah, thanks a lot for coming on. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.
Yeah, have a good one.
It's nice meeting you. My chat started acting up, dude.
I know.
I tried to mod him myself, and then somebody said, "Give me mod, I'll eat your ass." So I gave them mod. They didn't do anything. Oh man!
You're like, haha, I got mod now. What up, bitches?
Yo, look, mom, look at this. All right, do we trust this? $20 is $20.
Oh, good.
Hello, $20 is $20. $20.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, nice. Fuck, I make notes and they are gone now. I wanted to ask Asmongold. You start last year for the first time WoW Classic. How did it feel?
You mean playing Classic again?
Why again? You start with Burning Crusade, or?
I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused about your question.
I mean, did you ever play WoW Classic before the Classic server launch in last year?
Did I play before?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yes. What else? Is there any chance to get Iron on the podcast?
We'll see.
Who?
Yeah, we'll
Ian.
see.
Ian. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, Ian Hazukosis.
Exactly. Yes.
That guy.
Maybe. So I didn't really want to ask Blizzard if like we could have a dev on the podcast right after I got fired because I just felt like it wasn't the best timing.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's been long enough since I've been fired that like now it's probably be like much better time. So I definitely feel like we'll try to get a dev on soon, and also I think tomorrow when we do the dev interview on this stream tomorrow, I think that's going to go really well. It's going to be with New World devs, obviously, but I think when we do that tomorrow, it's going to go really well, and I feel like that's something too where like devs won't be scared of us.
Okay. And do you think the devs care about your opinion? I mean, you criticize the game a lot. Do you think they listen and they make notes or whatever?
I think it's probably half and half, right? I mean, sometimes they just probably blow off what we say and think that we're stupid, and then other times I think that they assume that there might be a little bit of insight in it as well. I think it's probably the same as like anything, right? I mean, you have you're going to have some people, and they'll have some opinions that you agree with and some that you don't.
I imagined that they probably go, "Wow, these guys play the game a lot. They're pretty cool. They talk about dicks a lot, right? Like, there's probably like if they listen, like, dude, like they're probably like, yeah, maybe it's not the best idea for the devs to go on a stream where like every 4 words is like, yeah, we're beating their dicks off, and like, oh, we're gonna suck his dick. You know what I mean? Like that's probably like one of the things too that doesn't help.
Wait, is that Quinn? I watched Path of Exile. Sounds like him, yeah?
Yeah, well, you don't see him on Quinn's stream either, do you?
Yeah, I mean, he talks a lot about dicks. I like this a lot. I watch his streams.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad that we have common interests.
I like Quinn stream a lot here.
Okay. Yes. Why did you get fired? This sounds horrible.
I mean, I don't really know. I have a few ideas of why maybe I got fired. But yeah, like it's not really company policy to go into details like that when they do let you go, but or like when they don't invite you back or whatever. But yeah, no, I definitely, I totally understand their decision and wanting to go another way. I miss getting to host AWC, but it's all good. I still watch the show. They're doing great. I still get to watch now and like cheer in a way where I don't have to be neutral, which is kind of fun. So I don't type in the chat at all because I feel like it would be like I don't want to like type in the chat and like have people like start getting like weird. But like I watch like a whole bunch. I get to cheer for Sea-Doo, who I've always cheered for, like one of my very good friends.
Is this ironic?
No.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for answering my questions.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for coming on, man. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Take it easy.
Hey, easy.
Did he ask me if it was ironic?
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what? You want to see me get them out?
Yeah. Just go get it, man.
Pick a song. Any song.
Oh, any song?
Pick a song.
YMCA by the Village People.
Okay. I know the right version of YMCA to play for this. Sorry, I gotta listen to this Ukrainian ad. How many weeks have we been doing? We've been doing Allcraft for another 5 months? 6 months?
Something like that? It's hard to say.
Done this 3 times every single Allcraft. Chat, please wish me luck this one time. I'm actually. Are you playing New World?
No, not yet. I haven't decided if I want to play today or not.
I'll play tonight. Holy shit, dude. I have a feeling, man.
Yeah, I mean, probably get it this time. It's not like a big deal. You just go and get it, you know what I mean? It is what it is. You just get invincible. You just kill the boss and it drops. That's it. You got the mount. Boom. Easy.
I don't know how to RP walk on this character.
Just go backwards, go forwards.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, what's up, dude? How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. So,
Whoa!
what have you been up to, man?
Not much. Just the daily grind. You know how it is.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Hi!
Yeah.
Hi there.
Holy shit! Hi! It's nice to meet you.
Rich.
Yeah.
Yeah, you too.
This, by the way, guys, is Kevin Jordan. So, Kevin, I ask you, what do you think of New World, man?
It looked like a disaster to me.
Shit. Why?
It looked like it's suffering from a major identity crisis. It doesn't know what it wants to be, right?
Yeah.
And you know they started with like a hardcore PvP survival game, and you know, and then it went to, oh, we have to add PvE all of a sudden, right? So they were poised to release this year with what they had, and then they realized, oh, people want PvE for some reason. And now they're trying to play catch up with that. So it's a pretty big shift in their philosophy, right? So it's having that problem. And on top of that, like the game that they wanted to make, which was a PvP survival game, the sort of the core gameplay didn't look like it felt very good. Like a game that's going to live and die by PvP, it has to feel good to PvP people, right? And it felt like everyone was just jogging away, you know, like there wasn't a lot of incentive to PvP, and a lot of the battles were ending with, you know.
Yeah, the second I got the healing staff,
was the worst part, man.
Yeah, I got the healing staff and I was like, oh shit, if I have this, I never have to fight ever again. And I dumped all of my points in Constitution and did nothing but sprint away from every single fight, even the PvE fights, because it just, you don't really get that much XP from grinding. So I definitely felt like there wasn't a need to fight. I feel like the one thing that, funny enough, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on it, the one thing that felt really good in the game was skilling. I had like the same joy as old school RuneScape, just being like, oh, I'm just going to chop down some trees, gather some herbs, and just craft. What do you think about the skilling in the game?
So yeah, I haven't actually played the game. I've only watched Lazy Peon's video, and where he covers a bunch of this stuff. So hands-on or first impression or first person experience, I don't have any of. But that's not the part that I'm really worried about. And yeah, it looked pretty good. Like the game looked good. It looked very pretty, and a lot of the UI stuff looked pretty sweet too. You know, so that stuff I'm not really worried about. I'm only commenting from like the big picture sort of, you know, design standpoint, which is what has me really worried.
Yeah, it's pretty disappointing to see it happen. I mean, I feel like a lot of people kind of went into it expecting something that's more PvP centric, and the wars and everything that it has are pretty fun, but they're very infrequent. And then there's also like the PvP only missions that don't even incentivize PvP. It's quite odd. I think
so that's exactly what I'm thinking about is like, okay, if you're going to build your game around the fun elements, and it seemed like at one point they wanted to build around the fun elements being, you know, PvP and the big sieges and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, but we don't have the full infrastructure to reward and incentivize these things. And when you do get into them, they're very brief, like you were saying, and you can't do it as much as you want. So it sounds like they don't know what they want to do with the game.
So in your opinion, and we obviously, I'm sure you may have heard, we're going to have an interview with one of the devs tomorrow from New World. But in your opinion, as somebody who's actually worked in the industry, how much can a game really change its identity in the course of a year?
That's what worries me the most. Is it's very difficult to. And from what I understand, one of their sort of the visionaries that was behind the PvP survival thing left the company with this year, and that's when they sort of started to pivot and change into something else. But it's very difficult to transition a game that's been in development this long into something that is very different from what it started out being. It could be done, like a Realm Reborn on Final Fantasy, like they rebuilt that game from the ground up, sort of thing. And I would have said that's not possible before they did it, but they went and did it. So it is possible, but it takes a lot of leadership, and again, it needs like Yoshi P is frequently considered kind of a great dude and a great leader, and I think that's what it takes, right? So if they have someone like that on the team that can really steer the ship in a different direction, then they'll be okay. But from what I've seen and from the videos I've seen, that would be a cause for concern, is that they don't really know what they want, and they're sort of reacting to the community. Oh, the community wants more PvE, so let's start working on that. Like that's not a strong visionary, sort of response.
Yeah, they just kind of do whatever people want them to do.
Yeah,
and democratic design is prone to disaster, right? So
I talk about this all the time, but it's obviously coming from me and not somebody who worked like actually on games and had to deal with different things like this. But I like to talk about kind of the idea that most feedback is going to be completely based off of cocaine logic, right? Like just like the idea of like, this feels good, I need more of it, like give me more of this. And so like when you see people running around in portals right now in New World, every single person is like, yo, I should be getting more XP for this. Like I should make sure, like if I run to the portals, I should make sure that I get credit. I should be able to tag more things. And every realm of the game, if somebody likes a small aspect of it, sometimes they'll completely operate off of their animal instincts. Yeah. As a developer, how do you deal with people just being like click monkeys sometimes?
Yeah. That's the ego and the vision, right? You have to have enough ego to fight off like every person's whimsical response to your game, and you have to test their thoughts and ideas against sort of what they're pushing for, right? And they're going to be pushing for what they want, and you have to test that against your original vision for the plan, and to say, well, this is actually what they want is actually in tune with what we wanted to deliver as a game, or it's not. And so you know whether or not you should respond to that feedback. But if you're just you're not sure what the vision is, or you're waffling on the vision, then you're just going to sort of do what the most people want, and then you're in real trouble, because that shifts so quickly.
That's what I think's kind of happened with WoW too, is they just kind of trying to make a lot of people happy rather than kind of making a core audience happy, or kind of building on that core audience.
Yeah, you have to know and be able to see it through, right? Because naturally, especially when you shift game design philosophy, like the people that aren't getting what they want are going to be the most vocal. The people that are having a great time aren't going to say shit, right? And so you have this situation where your most vocal, population is always for change and for big change, and you have to resist that and push forward with what your original view was. So,
well, how do you feel like that?
Tough to do.
Yeah, how do you feel like that comes together with something like the Covenant system that Blizzard's trying to do and be in Shadowlands?
Oh gosh, yeah, the Covenants is a whole thing. Like you guys know I'm a vanilla fanboy. I'm a little bit biased, of course, but I think Covenants are a good thing, and I know that the entire sort of player base is reacting really poorly to the idea of Covenants, but I like what they're trying to do, and so I hope that they stick to their guns, right? And this is a very contextual argument, so there's a ton more I would say if you guys want to deep dive on it or not, but obviously I don't want to take up your whole show, but it's something we could talk a lot about is Covenants, and I could defend the design standpoint of Covenants, but I know a lot of people feel really strongly about changing Covenants.
But before you deep dive, I want to ask a question about it in general. Do you think with how communities work now and how game development tends to work now, do you think that a system, even if it is the right call, if it is as negatively perceived as covenants are, for example, and it has that community feedback, do you
Right.
think that it will ever speak for itself, or will the community always be fixed on that idea of this is bad and it's dead on arrival?
Right. It's pretty funny because I think like everyone's up in arms about covenants. I'm willing to bet that within 2 weeks, there's going to be some other issue in Shadowlands that no one even gives a crap about covenants, right? How much you can change, right? Like, I think it's just a thing that people are attaching to, and they're resisting essentially their game changing rather than anything to do with covenants in particular. Because I think what are the real worries about covenants? I think the real worry is that the content is going to be so difficult without having a perfect covenant set up within your guild or raid or whatever it is, that you won't be able to do it. That you'll have to have some perfect, setup. Everyone's going to have to be the perfect covenant, which is then going to require that everybody has 4 of every class, right? 1 for each covenant ready to go in the raids. And people are really adverse to that idea. And I would be too. But the truth is, Blizzard can put the balance point wherever they want. They can require everyone be the perfect, covenant, or they can require that it's split 25% down the middle, right? They don't have to do the nightmare scenario, which is game is impossible unless you bring every person as the perfect covenant.
Oh yeah, I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think
Yeah,
my concern at least is that the way that it usually plays out is that, like, for example, if you're trying to do like a Mythic plus 15, which is like the highest for getting a reward, so that's usually the one that most people do. You don't need anybody who's 475, but if you have somebody there in the group finder who is 475, you're going to go with them over somebody who's 460, even though the 460 they can pull their own weight, just because the other guy can pull more weight.
Right. Yeah, and that's in an environment where everyone has unlimited choices, right? But is that the realistic environment? Because I guess we're talking about LFR versus like progression rating with hardcore guilds. I think LFR is going to muddle through it with any kind of setup, no matter what.
Yeah.
Because it's they set it so easy, right? But that's a problem with how easy, they set the raids rather than a problem with covenants necessarily.
I forget. I seriously wish I remember what professor really preached the idea when I was in school. I want to say that it was Robert Yang, and if I'm giving him credit for something that he didn't say, he's a fucking genius anyway, so he deserves all the credit. But it's always been something that's stuck with me. It's just, if you try to change human behavior, player behavior, you're always going to lose that battle, right? And I feel like game development got a fuck ton harder the second that Twitch existed, social media existed, and everybody started to talk about games the way that they do now. Back in the day, you would find some random guide which would have that cool ASCII art in the front. One dude managed to figure out how to write it, and that was it. And now information gets exchanged so quickly that I feel like anything that isn't playing the game to the best is it's trying to change human behavior in a weird way.
Yeah, and that's certainly true. And the distance between the dev team and the community is also much closer than, say, back in my day. So there's an expectation, a heightened expectation, that they listen, right? And that each of us as players feels like, oh, they should change it the way I want them to, because I can reach out and touch the person that is making that decision. So how dare they not listen to me or tell me no, right? So it's gotten much harder for devs to follow their vision and resist that pull, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all human beings and we want to be liked, right? So when a million people are telling us we're stupid and we don't like you because of your design decisions, it's like, oh my gosh, maybe I should change, But again, democratic design is a recipe for disaster, right?
Yeah.
I would say so. I think that one example that I kind of draw is the Legion Legendary system that didn't really go over very well with the player base whenever it was implemented. And I think that for the entirety of Legion, until they added a vendor for it, the player base pretty much resented it. It had cool bonuses, but ultimately it created unfair disparities between players. And do you feel like there's a point where developers should listen to the community, and like how do you feel like they should get to that point where like
Right.
the community's feedback overrides their own ego?
Yeah. So you should always listen to the community. The trick for the game dev is to translate that into usable, information on how to make the design better, right? Right, and that's very difficult to do, right? That's one of the biggest challenges a game dev has, right? Is trying to translate, because they can say they want the sky to be blue or pink or whatever, but just changing the sky color every day doesn't really get you what you want. You have to sort of figure out, why do they want the sky to change colors? Why do they care so much about this? And that's a much tougher job. So, and that was a big part of my job back in the day, was trying to translate that into, and ultimately we want a meaningful experience, right? And there's a relationship between challenge and choice and working hard and showing skill in accomplishing things to create a meaningful experience, right? So if I take the weight out of all of those things that I mentioned, you're also taking the weight out of the meaning, right? And so that's what a lot of players don't always understand. And they'll tell you all day, I want the loot, right? But it's like, if you destroy the means or the challenge of acquiring that loot, then you haven't made the game better, right? So you have to deprive people of the things they're asking for a lot of times in order for them to feel like they're earning it and accomplishing things.
It's the same reason why people play with cheat codes, and then as soon as they play with cheat codes enough, they get bored.
Yeah, they're bored. Yeah, exactly.
You have to have meaningful work for meaningful results.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I mean, like, I just kind of worry that, like, sometimes it's like this weird pendulum where it's hard for Blizzard to, like, really interact with the player base and give them actual, like solicit good feedback, because it's either, like, kind of one way or another way.
Yeah.
And people are so extreme. And I think that, like, there are things, like, for example, like the Legion Legendaries, where this was a bad system that people like told Blizzard they didn't want, and now with the GCD change that Blizzard is finally going back on, the people didn't want that for 2 years. And so I think that's one frustrating thing from like the other perspective for Covenants, is that seeing things that are seemingly like just consistently wrong, and then finally waiting after playing with the system that's dysfunctional for over a year, finally getting the system that players wanted.
Right. Yeah, it's so funny because like I mentioned, the distance between the community and the developers a little ways back. That's actually a good thing in a lot of ways, because it reminds me of the Office Space. Programmers aren't good at talking to the customers, right? Like, game developers have a skill set, and a lot of times those skill sets have nothing to do with communicating with other people, right? Effectively, communicating with fans effectively, right? Managing them emotionally, right? Managing their expectations, right? That's what community manager's skill set is. But the community manager isn't a game designer. He's not the guy you really want to talk to, right? Because he doesn't know what's going on behind the scenes. He's not the guy that can make the changes. So as a fan, as a player, you just feel stuck, right? Because you can't talk to the guy you really want to. And when you get a chance to, he's usually some guy who says something stupid like, do you guys not have phones, right? Because he's not properly equipped to deal with situations like that. And so you're stuck, right? Like, it's really hard to find someone that is both an amazing game designer, understands the vision at a high level, and can communicate effectively with, the fan base, right?
Yeah.
And then also be able to translate what you're asking for in real time into a good answer that's going to make you happy and help you understand the philosophy and how to move the game forward in an effective way.
I feel like Blizzard started to rely on that a lot, though, right? I feel like Ben Brode was like the golden child, and they were like, okay, we've had
Some
Ben
are good
Brode.
at it. He's good at it.
So it was like Ben Brode, Jeff Kaplan, Holinka for a long time, and like I feel like Holinka showed kind of the dark side of the community, right? Like people just like latched on it. It was just like, okay, now we can go to Holinka and yell at him for everything. And it kind of showed some of the reasons that having a face can be a bad thing. Because Holinka didn't deserve half of the shit that was going on with the WoW community, right?
We tend to put all of our hopes and dreams into one basket as well. Like that's the guy who makes WoW amazing when it's usually a giant team. Right?
Yeah. I've always found that fascinating. Sorry, go ahead.
It's really tough, right? You guys want to know. At the end of the day, you want to know that the game is going in the right direction. You want to be confident in the game designers, and you want to trust them to make good decisions, right? And the retail guys over the years have squandered some of that trust, right, by making decisions that have gone down really badly. And so they're sort of in this corner, in a lot of ways with the community, where people are starting to say things like, "This is your last chance. Shadowlands is your last chance." If it's not good, I'm out. And to some extent they've earned that, but you're in a really tough place in trying to trust them to be awesome, right? So it's going to be tough to win that trust back, but it's also, I don't think they can keep going down the path they've been going and see anything better than what they've been seeing, which is a slow and steady decline of World of Warcraft. So they're going to have to take some risks.
So you think that like Covenants might be kind of like that risk that they're trying to take, to just kind of like a Hail Mary?
Yeah, it could be. It's definitely like when you think about what did we learn from Classic? What can the devs take from Classic to make retail better? One of those things is definitely a sense of identity, right? Class identity, character identity, whatever it is. And having to choose a Covenant and being a really important choice does solidify within your character what is my identity, right? Much like a class decision does, right? You can't switch your class anytime you want. And so it kind of falls into that category, right? Obviously, the class is a much bigger deal, and Covenants aren't that big a deal, but it's in the same sort of area, right? It's in the same ballpark of design philosophy. This is a thing I'm going to make you choose. It's going to be a semi-permanent choice. It's going to be tough to switch, and it's going to add to your identity. So is that something that retail players want? Is that something you guys want? Do you want Classic to have influenced retail in this way so that they add this thing that creates a sense of identity but is hard to fix?
What did you think of Legion? Because I feel like Legion was really interesting. I felt like Legion had a lot of leaps and bounds in class identity based off of how you got to view different things, like Mage Tower, for example. Obviously, there was some overlapping between quite a few of the specs with how Mage Tower worked, but you had your order halls, like you had all of these things that I feel like did, and you had your artifact weapon as well, right? Did you think that was somewhat of a nice mix? Because you still had a lot of the freedom to change things as well.
Right. Well, again, there's a relationship between identity and how quickly you can switch it, right? Like if I can switch everything on the fly, then there's no real impact on my identity over a long period of time because I'm all of those things just as needed, right? So there's a relationship between those two elements. I think the Legion, like legendary, everyone running around with legendaries was a mistake, right? But because there's a sense of identity lost there, and one of the big places you get your identity from is what sword you're swinging, right? And when everyone has the same, it's like there's a guy with Sulfuris, there's a guy with Thunder Fury, there's a guy with OEB, right? Those are all a major part of his identity. And once everyone's just using the same thing, that falls away. And these things are like all tiny little parts of what forms your ultimate identity as a character.
Kevin, based purely upon that statement, how do you feel about transmogrification in the game?
It's something that I definitely didn't want in the early days of vanilla. I didn't even want dyeing, right? Because other games you could dye your gear different colors. I didn't even want that because I wanted the equipment that you wore to be part of your identity and to tell the story of where you'd been, right? Like I'm literally wearing my accomplishments on my body, right? And it's that first experience of you not only flexing on other people, but other people on the other side of that being inspired. Like, oh my God, where did you get that stuff? I have to go find that stuff, right? You're a total god, right? Like, and so that was huge, right? And so I was kind of down on transmog, but where I do soften my opinion on transmog is the RP scene. You know, like their ability to effectively play the RP game that they're trying to play without having a million bags and giant bank space to store all the stuff that they've ever collected. So that's where I kind of soften, but I still kind of come down on the fact that I think transmog does a little bit more harm to the game than good.
Yeah. I say it all the time, which is like kind of funny because like I think I never really talked to Asmon about it too much, but obviously he collects a lot of transmogs. But if I could go back in time and remove one thing, I would remove transmog.
Right, interesting.
Oh yeah, I think it's terrible for the game. Right, it removes such a huge part of that identity. I feel like the gear identity that you mentioned has been lost by player behavior and how the game's actually balanced. In a lot of ways, then you lose even more with transmog. Like, and it was a big pull as well, right? Because you care about that identity. Like, I totally see where you're coming from. I remember even looking at the TOC gear, which was even talk about a loss of identity, right? You lost your class identity with that set. It was a huge failure in a lot of ways because of that. So they decided to bring it back for an entirety of an expansion, which was awesome. But I still don't understand how they didn't learn from that mistake, and they ended up bringing it back. But it still drew me back to the game.
Yeah, the other side of it is, I think many of us want to take the world seriously. We want to take the game and the world seriously. Like, the blend of seriousness and humor, I think, in the early days of WoW was pretty close to perfect. And every time you see some naked guy or girl running around tanking giant dragons, like, you take the game a little less seriously, right?
True.
And that has an impact, you know, that sort of adds up over time. So, like, again, it's also with like the motorcycles or, you know, things that are struggling within the thematic of the game. Like, I think ultimately we want our world to be something we care about, have integrity, and something that we take seriously. And I think transmog chips away at that, or has the potential to. So, another reason why I'd rather have people that are going to tank the latest dragon be equipped in just crazy looking awesome armor that looks like it's built to do that job, right? Rather than somebody running around naked, you know? And just like, oh, don't worry, he's fully equipped. It's like, you should be able to look at that guy and say, that guy's not ready to tank a dragon, right? And that to be kind of true, right? So there's an integrity in that, you know, experience.
Kevin, I think I have an idea that can bridge the best of both worlds.
Oh boy, I love these.
What if you had the option that Blizzard could turn on that makes it so that everything that is Mythic Plus gear and beyond, all the way up through the current raid tier, is flagged as untransmoggable until the next raid tier is released?
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a stride in the right direction. But you know, I've like when I was leveling my retail character last year, and I was complaining about how crowd control is just gone, right? Like, everyone just AoEs everything down, right? And people kept telling me, oh, Mythic Plus has crowd control. You know, like, people do all the crowd control stuff in Mythic Plus. My response to that was always, why do I have to wait until Mythic Plus to play the game that I should be playing all along, right? And so I kind of put that suggestion in that same place, like, because, like, it's not just Mythic Plus people where this is a problem. This is a problem all the way up, right? And so I feel like in a lot of cases, you either believe in the design decision of transmog hurts the game or you don't. And so it's that suggestion is fine, but it's like there's still a problem with, you know, every level up until that point that you're suggesting that stuff doesn't.
I feel like the thing with transmog too is it's like the state of nature. Now that it's in the game, it's kind of pretty hard to go back.
It is very hard. Very hard.
I mean, I understand literally every person who goes, wait, I just spent all of these years now farming this transmog.
Yeah.
Like, how could you take this away from me, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's one of those things where you kind of, I've always felt like, yes, I would not have put transmog in the game if I can go back in time. I understand why some people are going to screech the second that I
Pandora's
say it.
box.
Yeah, it's one of those things I wish you could go back on, but then you start asking all the questions of why, and that was why I like that you brought up gear identity, right? Because I do feel like that used to be a huge part of what your character sheet was, who you were in the game, and something that you would think about. I remember like random items, remember their names, the nights I got them, the friends who I was playing with, and now I've had Harlan's dice for 2 years straight, and a bunch of other gear that's just random template gear that I'll never remember, and everybody else has it, and nobody looks like they're wearing anything.
Yeah, so they have to, like, so what to do, I think, in this case is, like, they have to decide that gear identity matters again, and then they can start designing systems to bring that back, right? Bring the value of that back. And something like Rob's suggestion could be very good, right? Where it's like, okay, for the next content patch, for a time, if you want to be wearing the stuff that matters, then it's not something you transmog, or you have to wear it, right? In some way. And then at some point in the future, maybe we soften those rules for those particular items in the next content patch or whatever it is. So maybe there's room to wiggle there, but they have to consciously decide that we want to bring gear identity back to mattering, right? And then figure out ways to do that. And there's probably multiple ways to do that. But
I'm kind of curious how you feel about this, and also how Rob feels about this, because Rob and I haven't really ever gotten to have a huge conversation about WoW either. I feel like one of the things that I've always said to Asmon like a million times, even if he's not listening, I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. I feel like I played a lot of City of Heroes back in the day. Like, I spammed the fuck out of City of Heroes, and that game did such a fucking. I play on the private server still. Great game, and I think that some of the really interesting things that game was able to do for identity actually revolved around different things like particle effects that you were actually able to put on your characters, and then later now even on private servers, some of those particle effects are on the character and also extended to the spells or your abilities. And I feel like just such a huge way to give that back and give gear identity back and just make characters look cool again would be prestigious, whether it's different things that are as bold as the warlock wings from on a tier set, being able to actually be separate from that tier set and something that you unlock and equip, or if it's allowing us to change the actual spell effects character to character.
Like I was saying, and you're thinking along the right lines. It's like there are multiple ways to get that sense of identity back. It doesn't have to necessarily all come from one system, or it doesn't have to hang on the shoulders of one particular area of the game. But they have to decide that these things are important again. And they have bigger problems, right? It's like, it's great that you have amazing gear, but the way you interact with most people is you see everybody once and then you never see anyone again, with Dungeon Finder and et cetera, and sharding and all that other stuff, right? So it's about more than just, gear identity. They have to figure out that, ways to create collision that matters and repeat collision with the same players, and then this stuff all sorts to tie together, right? In making, you bumping into other players is a good experience, a fun experience, a relevant experience, and an experience that matters, right? So,
what's funny?
It's a whole thing that they have to address and look at, and they have to want to. So,
I know that you haven't actually gotten a chance to play New World, so you've only gotten to watch it. So I'm not sure if it would have translated as well. New World, I think that this was one of the funniest dichotomies of the game with me. The world itself is so good at funneling players to similar areas. That is one thing that does very, very well. The friends list is actually pretty clean, and it shows nearby people, and it has the added proximity chat. The world itself connected you with players better than most MMORPGs ever have, even in its current state. The problem was like, what do I do with these players? Because anytime you're trying to hit something, it's like you're body blocking each other. You're desperately trying to tag the same mod. But the world itself felt so alive. And I felt like I was connected with players. And I actually, that is the one thing where you look at the game and I would go, man, imagine if WoW could actually connect the world the way that this game does.
Oh, yeah. And that's a lot of that is intentional design, right? Like one of the things that I was so blown away by was so stark in the difference between classic and retail, for example, is back when we were seeing preview videos of a lot of streamers and YouTubers playing classic before, like during the beta, was almost every one of them had this experience where they wander into the first cave, right, and it gets tough in there, and they end up making a friend and they end up duoing because that person was also having a tough time. So there was this collision and need, and before you knew it, you had two people playing together, and then they were like on the friends list, and and then they ended up partying and questing for a few more hours after that, right? All of that was intentionally designed into the game, right? And so people don't always realize that, but there is a design element that creates and fosters that experience, right? And it sounds like New World is doing some of that correctly, right? But retail, you run into a cave, you blast everything in seconds. You have no need for a friend. And the guy who's killing stuff around you is actually in your way, right? He's slowing you down because he might be killing stuff that you wanted to kill, right? So those are two different, social experiences based on design, right? That have gone two completely different ways. And so, design matters in all of that stuff. And it can create a good experience or it can create an antisocial experience. And that's what we have.
I wrote
the difference between resale and classic.
Do you think that players are different now than they were back in, 2004 or 2005? Because, like, for example, in Classic WoW, there's now a very large meta built around boosting through dungeons. And I don't really remember that in the original Classic WoW. I'm sure it was there to an extent, but it was not nearly as big as it is now.
Right.
Do you think there's a way to kind of do you think players are like fundamentally different in the way that they approach challenges and the way they approach games nowadays based off of how much different people approach Classic versus vanilla WoW back in the day?
I think we're more organized, right, collectively, but I think individually we're not that different. Again, like people that have been playing retail for years, playing other games for years, been, turbo spurging everything, right? Like they still went into Classic, went into that first cave and made a friend, right? And wandered out, so I think it's the games themselves that have changed a ton more. And I don't think people are, I think we're not more or less products of our environment than we were back then. So I think the game design is dictating here how people behave more than players are dictating. You know what I mean? So I think it's the game design that's changed and we've changed with it. So if we were to change the game design back, to the way it was, I think you'd see a lot of people changing with it. So
Kevin, I'd like to offer a counterpoint to that, Kevin. I don't think that it's necessarily the game design that has to change. I don't think it's even the people that have changed. I think that it's the information gathering ability of people that have changed. And
that's what I mean by organization.
And their willingness to communicate. Because I can think of one thing that did get patched recently in Classic WoW, which was the Commander Gorshak farming in Blackrock Depths, which was, for anyone in the chat that does not know, there is a exploit where you can initiate a quest to free Commander Gorshak from his prison cell, and a number of Dark Iron Dwarves will run in waves, and you can kill them all and AoE them down if you have several mages. Very easy, very quick XP, and can be reset constantly to get those waves. That existed back in vanilla WoW, and I knew a number of people who knew about it, but the difference back then is we would never share that information with anyone else.
Right, you'd hoard it, absolutely. The organization, the tools, like we've gotten really serious about game knowledge, as a community, right? So that's all dramatically different. And the speed at which we disseminate this information, right, because of Twitch and streamers and YouTube and all that stuff, vastly different. But I think what players want, like from a psychological and emotional standpoint is largely the same. I think our attention spans were just as bad back in the day, as kids, but we still gravitated towards the quality. Like we still loved certain cartoons over other cartoons because they asked, deeper questions and they were more involved, right? And games are the same way. So
it's also
the way
one
they
of the
test us, is what determines how much we like them. So
it is also like an acquired taste in a lot of ways though as well. It's like, okay, when you're a kid and you've only had water, when you're thirsty, the only thing you're going to think about is water, right? You're like, oh,
right.
Water's really good, and your behavior is going to be around obtaining water. Then all of a sudden, a young neckbeard tastes Coca-Cola for the first time, and all of a sudden he forgets to drink water. And I kind of feel like with games now, you just get into social interaction so much quicker, and they are so much more disposable because humans tend to go towards literally anything that is easy, even though it's worse for them, right? And we look for social interaction like bad places, even on social media. And you have games like Fortnite, right, where Fortnite, you die, you instantly are in another queue again. You even look at Fall Guys, right? Sure. The new successful game. The second that you are done, 30 more seconds, you're in a brand new game, and you never have to stop playing. And WoW doesn't have that.
Right, and wins and losses are also a lot less meaningful in that game because you're just running it back instantly. So I won, I lost, whatever. They feel about the same. They taste about the same. Let's just run it back. It's not until you kind of go back and look at your overall win-loss record where you start to think about, well, what are the meanings of these things? But again, it's like, is there any value to your win-loss record? Very little. It's like, if I had turned some of those losses into wins, would I feel different? I'm not sure. But Classic is built around, it takes longer to do everything, and everything is therefore more meaningful, right? So like Nax is coming up, right? And we're going to see some people do Nax for the first time. We're going to see, supposedly that dungeon is going to break a few more guilds, right? AQ40 is already breaking some guilds. But Nax is going to, break a few more. And for the guy who has been gearing up for Nax this whole time, he's going to do it, and he's going to be proud of it, and he's going to feel like accomplished. And then, somebody's going to see that accomplishment, and they're going to be like, oh, maybe I should fire up a brand new character in Classic and go crush Nax. And they're going to be like, holy shit, this is actually really hard to get all that done. So Nax will be an accomplishment.
Do you think that Nax will be hard now in Classic?
Not for the people that are ready to crush it, not at all. But my point is, it will be for the guy who thinks he can just start fresh after Nax is out and go get Nax done, right? Okay. He's going to be in for a rude surprise, right? Because he's going to have to do a lot of work, right? And that's how we want it. Yeah. Because we want Nax to be an accomplishment. So
the weird thing that kind of, I feel like there is kind of like those Bard of Mirrors, though, sometimes, because anybody who watches and doesn't play that would come back now, what they see, instead of their friend who tells them all of the achievements in school, which was, I know, one of the things that would constantly pull me back to the game. My buddy Jeff, if I ever took a break, Jeff would be like, yeah, dude, you want to see the damage meter from last night? And I was like, holy shit, Jeff, you're a god. And then I would have to come back. Now the thing is you pull up a YouTube video, and you're watching a streamer who's just had all of the gear funneled to him, handed to him, and he's breaking everything. And it makes some of the achievements look... I'm not calling you out right now, Asmon. I'm not. It's pretty much any streamer. Like even right now in Classic, right? I took a break from Classic for like multiple reasons. I didn't really want to take a break. It just kind of happened. And I plan on coming back from Nax, and I'm not nearly as big of a streamer as Asmon or anything like that, but I know I'll be able to get in the runs, I'll be able to get the loot, and that just is what it is. And it'll look easy to anybody who's watching who's not realizing that the reason that it's easy is because there are 39 other people who put in that work before I'm coming in just strolling along, right?
So you compare that with what it takes to do the latest thing in retail, right? With all the catch-up gear and with all the, how quick it is to sort of get caught up to the latest. And there's a real disparity between what it takes to knock down, let's say knock down all the raids, right? Not necessarily the hardest level, but knock down all the raids versus what it takes to start fresh after Nax comes out and complete Nax. There's a big disparity there. So, and that's part of the design again, because we know there's a relationship between how much skill and how much time it takes to complete a thing and the value of that achievement, right?
How do you feel about the overall encounter design philosophy now compared to how it was in the day? Because I think Nax is one of the interesting ones, because when you look at Nax, there are a lot of like really nuanced design decisions that I still think to this day are some of the better mechanics that World of Warcraft has seen, and also really established a lot of the groundwork for like mechanics that are referenced a lot in fights, which is something that's really cool. But there's been a big change overall, and Asmon actually has talked about it a lot of times, and I think in a really good way, kind of talking about the war of attrition with add-ons that kind of you need to make more and more difficult mechanics.
Yeah, so raids, they have a lot more tools to make more interesting raids now than we ever did back in the day, right? So the tool set has gotten a lot more powerful, a lot more advanced. The design is also improved. I think the raids today are more complicated and more challenging in terms of mechanics, right? Like maybe mathematically, Nax is still going to pack a punch, right? Just in raw like numbers, but mechanically, I think the raids today are much more challenging, and so they sort of shifted the game in terms of like what percentage of time versus skill is required to defeat things, right? To knock down raids, and that's shifted towards more skill and less time. But back in the day, it was more time based, right? So you just had to put in the work. Like you had to get your character fully geared, and you had to get all your world buffs every week, and you had to make sure all your consumables were ready to go, like, and we can say disgustingly so, right? How much overwork it was, right? But so that's shifted more, right? Towards you just have to be better, right? If you're better skilled, then you'll get through these raids. You don't need as much grinding. And for a lot of people, that's exciting. That's a great direction. That's a good shift. But for others, it's like, well, I kind of liked being able to brute force it with my time, by being not the greatest, but someone who is committed, right?
There's something to be said for that too. I definitely agree. I think that like that's one of the good things that I always really liked about Classic WoW and also like Burning Crusade too, is that they you had to do one raid to do the next raid. Like you had to do tier 5 to do tier 6. You had to do BWL pretty much to do AQ40, and you had to do AQ40 pretty much to do Nax.
There was a design connection. A lot of it was around resist gear, but it was also just straight power level.
Yeah, I mean, the shit's just a lot harder. I mean, like, you could probably go into Nax with, like, BWL gear and probably be able to do it, especially if you had world buffs. Yeah, sure. But it would be, like, way fucking harder than if you just had AQ gear. And so I feel like that's one of the things that, like, for me personally, I dislike about a game. Also, this is a problem I have with New World, is that I feel like most of these MMOs now have, like, a very horizontal progression curve once you hit max level, where you pretty much like get the max level gear and then that's it. And then getting the max level gear doesn't really matter, because in order to get the max level gear, you have to do the max level content, and there's no max level content that necessitates the max level gear.
Destiny
and
did
there's
it
not
too.
like you do pre-raid to get MC gear, and you do get MC gear to get to the BWL, right? Like most games don't even have BWL, and no games hardly have AQ or Nax.
Right.
So
I think people, like players, appreciate, like you're saying, they appreciate that sense of progression, right?
Yeah.
And not only that, but it's a thematic part of the whole, right? Which is you're trying to tell a story, a story of that progression of, well, why are we in BWL? It's because MC led us here, and BWL is going to lead us to AQ40, right? So there's a sense of progression in both, the story and in the world, and just everything is tied together, so. Those things are really important, and I think people appreciate that kind of stuff.
It's also like with retail right now, I feel like personally, you don't even need to do anything in the game besides just the current raid.
Yeah.
I don't, there's no reason for me to go and do like Old Deer. There's no reason to do Battle of Noir War. And I feel like that's like one of the worst things about the game.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you're thinking this is the content of the game. Like it's the content of the current expansion that's now irrelevant.
The biggest loop right now to get player power is to do world quests, to then do more solo content in the visions, and then get RNG, like salvage your RNG, and then buy your deterministic rewards, right? So majority of the player progression encourages people to just play by themselves and play a solo game, which I think is kind of weird. And then on top of that, I look back to Wrath of the Lich King and it had all of those things that you said, right? Like you look at Wrath of, and I know Asmon will always go back and forth when I talk about Wrath, but I think Wrath made a really strong case in a lot of ways with it used the Lich King as the bad guy in the box, I think the best way out of all of the expansions. There was no way you were going to play that expansion and not beat up that son of a bitch who kept showing up everywhere where you were leveling, everywhere when you were in dungeons, going like, yo, you suck. And like at the very end, it felt so good when you beat him. And there was a real reason to go into that raid and get that gear. Even though it was the end of the X-Pack, you're like, I just got to beat the shit out of this guy. And that's really something that I feel like has been lost in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
that was your last expansion, right, Kevin?
Wrath was, yeah. And again, we talk about gear identity. Like the armor you wear tells the story of where you've been, but it's such a personal thing with each character as well. Like this is actually my experiences within the game, and nowadays, like you're right, it's like if I hadn't had to have gone through the dungeon sort of in order and picked up the gear in order and seen that damn Lich King appearing, every time in order, I wouldn't feel the way I do about crushing him in that final raid. So it's not just the story of where you've been, it's the story of the emotional adventure you've gone through and the connection to the story that you've gone through, and your experiences within the game all along. So all that stuff is connected and important if you make it. But if the game is reduced to just smacking bosses and getting loot, hell, there's a million games that offer that experience. But World of Warcraft offered something more back in the day. It offered a lot more. And we don't care about those other games that offer those things because WoW was special. WoW was unique, in a lot of these ways, and how they tied it all together. So,
do you think...
the end game, like having like depth to it is just so important to me. And I'm very disappointed to see how at this point in time, it's like you play like I use this example and like this analogy all the time on my stream. I tell people like, you don't play the expansion anymore. You just play the patch.
All right.
Like it's so frustrating to deal with. And I don't know.
They've intentionally tried to get you to the raid game, right? Like over the years, the X-Packs are less about leveling and less about that journey and more about the destination of just let's get you jammed up to the top. Let's get through the 10 levels we offered you as quickly as possible and get you on the raid grind, right? The progression grind. But they've devalued the whole journey. And for a lot of people, the journey was way more fun than the raid grind. For some people, the raid grind is where it's at, and that's fine. But you've lost a lot of people along the way that just cared about leveling and being part of the world and having social experiences along the way, and don't want to be jammed up to the top.
Well, leveling is like the best casual content because it's very on rails. Because they tell you what to do and where to go. Like I think a big problem with retail is that you hit max level, and like most players, like the new player experience for somebody playing WoW right now is you buy the game and you're immediately max level. Well, how do you? The reason why you knew what to do whenever you hit 60 is because you spent 59 levels preparing for it.
Yeah, you trained, learning from your mistakes, and
it's also like you just were learning the context of the game. You were learning like, oh, there's raids, and then there's this dragon, Nixia, and then there's this mythical like Nax Ramus place, and there's these people with like this crazy gear in town, and you're screenshotting their gear, and like that kind of stuff is you create that mystique through not like having the immediate capacity to do that and working towards it. And I feel like you don't even have level up experience. So a new player has to immediately create their own journey whenever they don't have the investment in the game initially, whenever they first start, to want to create that own journey. I don't know. I think it's a huge problem.
Like, I agree with what you say. And on top of that, just the reinforcing, like, it's not just one dimensional, it's multi-dimensional. Like, you're not just learning how to play your character, how to push buttons in the right order. You're learning where you fit in socially. How you fit in a role way, like like you have to figure all that stuff out at the same time while you're leveling. So it's not just a game, right? It's a game, it's a social environment, it's a world environment.
Well, most people
all
like
these things fit together.
I joined the guild that I rated AQ with and I rated ZG with. I joined that guild and I was like level 40. And like a lot of us were level 40. And like once enough of us hit 60, we were like, let's fire it up, see what happens.
Well, raiding used to also offer that as well, right? You talk about how you found your social place when you were leveling. I feel like when the loops to actually get player power for your alts as well, for all the hardcore players, and this is especially when you start to get to BC and really in Wrath, when people start to alt a whole bunch, you would go into raids instead of just doing dailies and only doing dailies. Like you would go on your second character and you would need a new raid group for it if it was 10 or 25 man. A lot of people are making those 25 man groups. And for the players that weren't as good, all of the sudden there was a raid group for them that they fit in with. And then what was their next goal? I'm going to get in the main raid group. I'm going to get better and I'm going to move up. So like that social structure, when you kept players in group content, existed not only in leveling but in the raid environment as well.
Yeah, and also stretching it out so it took longer also separated different skill players into different buckets, right? So when you got to the top and you started raiding, guess who you were surrounded with? A bunch of dudes that got through the game about as fast as you did. So you're already kind of on the same page. You weren't mixed in with a bunch of casuals and or other super hardcore sweaty neckbeards that you just didn't belong with, right? So it did a really natural thing of separating people into nice little buckets.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely one of the good things about Classic, and it also helps people kind of... there's like a visual progression to it as well, right? I mean, you talk about like, oh wow, I'm so excited to do Nyalotha on Heroic after you've done Nyalotha on Normal. And it's like, man, give me a fucking break. Or like Nyalotha on Mythic. Like, it just sucks. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of these things are... I don't know how Blizzard can like really solve them, but they have like some of these like core like functionalities now, like Mythic Plus, for example. Like, how do you reconcile a progressive raid system that has static item levels with something like Mythic Plus that is supposed to scale up every season? And the only way to really do that is if they just made the levels go up without adding them, without rebalancing them. So like you'd be doing Mythic Plus like 60s at the end of the expansion.
Yeah, I think unlimited content that scales is really just bad for the game at the end of the day. Like, it's fine for Diablo because you don't really interact with other people that much in Diablo, but I think it creates a dynamic that is unsustainable when it comes to people engaging in the content and devouring content. That's what's most important in the game. And I hate to break it to you guys and a lot of people listening, but the raid game is not the best game, content in the game. The players themselves are the best content in the game. The raid is just an excuse. PvP is just an excuse to put you in the same room to bounce off each other and create memorable moments, right? It's all of you guys playing that make the real content, right? Leroy Jenkins, more dots, the funeral that got assaulted, in PvP. That's the real content of this game. It's not how many bosses you've downed and stuff like that. So, the content should be there to put you in an environment where you bounce off with each other. And when it's unlimited, there's an unlimited treadmill chase, then nobody relaxes at any point. No one feels like, oh, I've done the thing, now I can start messing around, now I can start having fun, doing social things, goofing off, like
Now I
creating
can put,
videos in my spare time, like
that's what
when
I did.
think about all the amazing machinima that came out, and like all this weird stuff that came out, like all the amazing, memorable moments. And I'm trying to think about the stories that retail has generated. Like obviously you're huge in this, Asmongold, like creating those mount competitions and stuff like that. Like that's amazing stuff in retail. But outside of that, like how much of that is like naturally occurring? Like you have to go out of your way to make stuff like that happen.
That's the thing. Zach's creating the only player. He's creating the only content where players actually interact with each other in the game. Like that's why his stream is like. I mean, obviously Zach is is incredibly entertaining, and that's one of the reasons he got so huge. But the thing is, his stream is bigger than WoW now because it's something that actually involves people together, which MMOs just don't even do anymore.
And he's doing stuff that's reminding people why they loved WoW in the first place, right? Because WoW used to do this for people. He used to create opportunities for this stuff to happen spontaneously, right? Now it takes somebody like Asmongold to step up and manufacture this thing, right? So it's not as prevalent.
Well, there's the need and like the want of wanting to see and have like those genuine, spontaneous, sporadic interactions. Like in New World, whenever somebody first tested the mic and is like, "Hey, can anybody hear me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can hear you." And it's like, there it is. That's real, and it's happening right now.
Right.
That is so fucking cool. Like for me, it's actually funny that you say that. Is like one reason why I started streaming and making videos is because like I had already basically beaten everything in the game, right? I was like, okay, well, I have like almost every mount in the game now. I've almost every like fucking beat all the raids. Like I might show everybody how great I am.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna truly express myself, right?
Yeah.
That's what you did, and that's what people. There's a freedom in being done with the content that allows you to start. You let your hair down. Sorry, Asmongold. And you're able to actually express yourself, for the first time, and have a lot of fun. And you can't do that when you have this unlimited progression system in front of you, right? Where it's like, I just have to keep grinding. I can't get off this treadmill. It's just auto running, and I have to keep going. So.
Yeah,
it's definitely like kind of an exhausting thing, and like that's one of the reasons why I do make content. Like we had done Project 60 before, we had done Herald of the Titans, and getting people together and playing with a group of people, I think, is one of those things that is like one of those long lost like holy grails of gaming and like social interactions. Like I have a very vivid memory of waking up in the morning. And I had left my computer on, and I was in vent. I just stayed in the channel, and I remember like I was like brushing my teeth. Actually, probably that part's probably not true. I was like,
you were washing your hands, please.
Yeah. Well, I was walking into my room, right, one way or another, and I heard from my headphones like my guildies were talking and like laughing and shit. And this is like right as I had gotten up, and I'm like, man, like I'm about to like fucking log on. It's Burning Crusade. We're going to do like Isle of Claudanus dailies. We might do like, tier 5 keying runs because it was the weekend. And it was just like that fucking great feeling of just being able to log on and play with your friends. And I think you're right about the community really being the real content of the game, because I use the example, like you see a lot of servers that are dead and nowadays, but server that you don't really ever see like lose its population in the same ebb and flow that you see like a lot of these other servers do is things like Moonguard. Because the players are the content. Our peers create their own content, and it's like there was a huge content drought in TBC because there were a lot of guilds that just didn't really have like the comps to go into Sunwell, so they would just Black Temple and then they'd be done, and like maybe they'd key somebody every other week or like once a month, but that was it. So what did you do all the rest of the time? Well, you did dailies with your friends. You played with you did BGs with your friends. And I feel like that's kind of like what it was all about. And somewhere along the line, I think Blizzard is kind of they've created interactions with like, you know, being able to like immediately join a group to like kill a boss out in old something like that. But these are interactions; they're not social interactions, though.
Yeah,
These
they're
are
game interactions. Yeah.
yeah,
And that's the thing when I talk about game, and social, and like world all being connected, right? Like,
Yeah.
the experience that you talked about is so perfect because that's exactly how you're supposed to feel about the MMO genre in general, or games like World of Warcraft, where it's like, yeah, I took the night off from playing, and it's like, you should be pissed, like you missed out.
Yeah.
There was stuff happening, right? Like, you don't want to miss a minute. This world is spinning, whether you're there or not, right? It's spinning up, and your friends are having a blast, and people are doing awesome things. Like now, the content's just waiting for you to log in, and it's like, yeah, once we log in, we'll jam through it, and then it's waiting for us, like. But it should be the other way around, like you should feel like if I'm not there, man, I'm missing out. Shit's going down, and that's all player-created content. None of that is game content. You're missing out on what all the people in the game are doing. That stuff that you can't get back, right? So
I want to ask you a question that I feel like we've brought up. I feel like I've definitely brought up on and off Allcraft, but none of us are super well equipped to answer it. And I'm not sure how well equipped you will feel to answer it, but you're definitely more equipped than we are. Do you think that, like, we all understand that games are very much impacted by the revenue streams and the way that they're going to monetize? Do you think that with how the climate of games has shifted, how game studios make their money, and how companies stay in the green, do you think that a new MMO could ever exist, or WoW could ever exist in the capacity that it did with the revenue streams being the way that they are?
Yeah, that's you're really poking my cynical bone now, but I want to believe, right? So here's what I'll say. So I think Ashes of Creation is in a good spot in that respect, right? Because it's being like privately funded by a fan, who just wants a really good game to play. And I can also say, with certainty that there's a lot of amazing design going on at the indie level, right? That we don't get the AAA assets and all that stuff, but it's only a matter of time before the indie level like generates a really good concept for a genre that involves like an MMO type feel, but doesn't have the resources to capitalize on the market. And then hopefully that spins up this new generation of, developers willing to take a risk financially to do something like make a big, huge MMO that's going to pay out because tons of people are clamoring to play it. Because I think the market is there. Like if you think about and talk about people that want Classic Plus, for example, I think that market is huge. And it's multiple millions of people that are ready to pay $15 a month. So it's just a matter of who wants to come get that money, Yeah. And obviously it's a huge risk. And right now, the way the market is and, we're all pretty risk averse, but I think that pendulum will swing back at some point, and we'll get some people trying to make some really amazing things to capitalize on that market.
We've seen a few different games come out, or on the verge of coming out, that are trying to kind of capitalize on that MMO market. And I kind of have like two questions. Like, so one thing is that I do feel that in the mid 2000s, early 2000s especially, being able to interact with another person online was a novelty in itself, where it's like just knowing that you're talking to this other guy who's a real person that you're playing with
from somewhere in the world.
And like I'm you're older than I am, but like I'm still old enough to remember whenever that was special. And now it's not special anymore. And I think that to some degree, do you think that's diminished the quality of like people's or like the degree of fulfillment that people get out of MMOs, and kind of like that specialty that they get out of MMOs? And also I also want to see, like, what do you think about Ashes of Creation?
So I did a whole video on my I did like an hour and a half video of my thoughts on Ashes. So
I'm gonna watch that for 8 hours tonight.
Yeah, I'll give you the TLDR if I can, but I'm excited by it, and I think it's already done good work in the sense that it's inspiring us and captivating our imagination on what could be, right? And that's where we should be, as fans and as players, we should be demanding, more of that sort of creative. What can we do with this MMO space? How can we push the MMO genre back to greatness, right? So I think that it's already done good work in that sense, even if it fails to reach, the expectations, right, which some of us have put really high. I think it's still done important things in testing it and trying to push the envelope and trying to make, the next great thing. So that's really important. Sorry, what was the other part of your question?
Of being able to socially interact with people when the early 2000s not existing anymore.
I think it's an important point that you make, that it's much easier now, but I think still what's missing is how meaningful it is, right? Like it's it's the same experience as Dungeon Finder. Like it is super easy to get, into a group and run a dungeon, but the quality of that experience is really low from a social standpoint. And so I think people are craving meaningful social interactions in games, right? And we've moved away from that. But I think human beings are still in that kind of place where, because how many stories have you heard where it's like, yeah, I stayed connected to my family, or I met my significant other, or whatever it is. Like people form real relationships, real friendships through games, and I think people still ultimately want meaningful social interaction and meaningful relationships to form with people that started out as strangers on the internet. So, but games just aren't servicing that need at the moment. So I think the need is there. The market is there. Again, it's just a matter of someone to come up and grab it,
Oh, it's definitely there, Kevin. I mean, I just want to thank you personally. I've never said this when we've spoken, but I lost my virginity to a girl in my Burning Crusade guild. So thank you, Kevin.
Damn. Wait, are you going to tell me it was my mom next?
No.
Or? Oh, really? Okay. Okay. Phew.
Could have been whoever you wanted her to be.
Well done. Yeah. You're welcome. Was it a particular boss, or? I'm trying
No.
to. Yeah,
She played a druid.
Okay.
They always do.
She decide after a certain boss, like, well, we didn't get the loot. You want to go, do something else?
Players are the best content in this game. I'm just trying to play the content.
That's right.
Yeah, there's been a lot.
I think that people's needs, like human beings, haven't changed that much. Like we haven't evolved into a totally different species between now and when vanilla came out. So we want the same things. We want social interaction that's amazing. We want both good and bad social interactions, believe it or not, but we just want it to be meaningful, right? And so, but games have moved away from that, and they've tried to make the game better, right, by eliminating all friction points and eliminating, any pain points, and you can't experience anything bad, you can't chat with each other, everything is hi, hello, good game, like we've moved away from allowing people to talk to each other, and we've prevented or stood in the way of social interaction. So I think I think people just need to get back to it, and game design can do that if they want to, but they have to realize that it's important and the market's there to be served.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of people that are looking for that kind of meaningful interaction, and Classic gives it to a certain extent. I definitely think so, but I think people also want to have that new experience as well. I think that's for me. I've always wanted to have vanilla WoW come back, but what is really the subtext of that? The subtext is I want a game to come out that made me feel like vanilla WoW did whenever I was 16.
Yeah, we're putting up with playing a 15-year-old game, but honestly, what we really want is a brand new game to sink our teeth into and have no idea what it's about, and try to figure everything out both individually and collectively. But has the same philosophies that Classic did and or Vanilla did, and this pushes us in the same into the same places, that Vanilla did. So
that's why I really had fun with the world with. is like being able to just like go and like play a new MMO where there's like no real information out there about it because of the NDA with the alpha.
It's like,
so everybody was like, I don't know how to make this. I don't know where this is. I don't know where to farm. And there was no meta or anything like that. That's why I think that like playing an MMO for like the first month of its release is always good.
Oh yeah, for sure. I call it the honeymoon period, right?
Of course.
And yeah, we all fall in love, and then but depending on how quick we grind through the content, it's like they either had enough or they didn't, or the game either is built to last or it isn't.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Were world buffs intended to be taken into raids in Classic?
No, there was essentially no oversight on world buff, so it was just a bunch of quest designers and item designers making a bunch of cool stuff, and then people went and collected it all and ran into raids with it. So we didn't actually do design oversight on what the whole world buff system meant until TBC. So obviously it got pretty crazy.
Yeah, I see the system and like the way it works now. It's just absolutely insane. And especially like you can look at what people's damage is. Like people are doing the same amount of damage that some people are doing at level 70. And there's 40 people and the bosses have half as much health. Insane. Like these bosses just get completely melted. And I don't know, do you think that they should have like a server? Like let's say they release TBC and later on down the line, people wanted to see like a classic server with like a few changes and, modifications. Would you want to see? Do you think it'd be a good idea even?
The problem with that is there's probably 1,000 different versions of what that looks like, right? Depending on who you ask.
You have a Classic Plus, yeah.
Yeah. So you're in for a pretty rough debate on like, okay, what should we do, guys? Right? Like,
yeah, everybody wants something different,
right? So, yeah, I mean, just like everyone else, I could come up with a version that I'd like to see, but who's to say who's going to get who's going to get Christmas and who else is going to who's going to be stuck with coal in their stocking.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. I find it's like very interesting. Like, do you think they should take a direction of doing a Classic Plus or TBC?
My worry is that are they in a position right now where they can do an effective Classic Plus?
Yeah.
That's what I'd ultimately want to see. But do we trust the retail team, to just suddenly start working on that, right? Because, I was just talking about this in an earlier podcast, but like if you ask the WoW retail dev team, right, what they want all of us playing retail and having a great time, right? That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
And they're struggling with that, right? So to take that team and be like, oh, either split up or stop working on retail and work on Classic Plus, like what does that actually look like? Are they prepared to do that? Are they equipped to do that? Do they understand enough about what makes vanilla and classic truly special? Can they continue in that vein, right? Like maybe if they just focused on raid content, which is one of their specialties, maybe it could be pretty good, but the rest of it, I'm not so sure.
That's always the thing that I bring up. Like whenever somebody's like, "Yeah, dude, WoW 2 would save everything," I'm like, "You realize the people that would make WoW 2 are the same people who are making WoW right now." One question I've always been curious about. I feel like this has been a very big shift recently in games in general, but I've definitely felt it a lot in WoW, and it's the idea of annoyance versus challenge. There's so many instances where I feel like annoyance is added into the game, and I think it's to add like a perceived difficulty. I'm actually not sure if it's just bad game design or if there is actually a reason to it, right? Because like you mentioned the cave all the way back when you're leveling up your gnome or you're leveling up your dwarf for the first time. You mentioned that cave. I literally wrote a 15-page paper on that cave when I was in game design school.
Nice.
Yeah, and you look at all the little things about that cave, how they're like dead ends that you're going to move, and you're going to like look back when you go up that dead end, and you're actually going to get a scope of where you are, and you're going to see the quest items, and it's flawless, right? It's all intended, but if you're not intellectualizing it you're going to feel those moments of exploration. You're going to be driven to play with other players. What is the intent behind having straight up annoyances?
Right. Okay. So I'll bring up days. Right. Everyone's favorite thing that they hate. Daze is seen like getting dazed and knocked off your mount or whatever, and you're running through. No one in their right mind would defend it. Right. It should be yanked out of the game. But here I am. I'm going to defend it. I'm going to tell you the work that it does. Right. That's important. One is it makes the world feel dangerous. Right. Because if the mobs can actually kill you in quantities, right, then Daze is going to knock you off your horse and put you in a bad spot, right? Because now there's suddenly 4, let's say, max level, mobs on you because you ran through a camp without paying attention, right? Now you're in a spot where you have to think on your feet. It's like, how do I get out of this, right? This could kill me and send me back to where I was and be a giant pain in my ass, right?
Yeah.
So making the world feel dangerous makes it feel like a world. It makes it feel like you're not welcome in these high level zones, assuming you're in a level appropriate zone. It also makes you pay attention so that there's an engagement level there. Well, maybe next time I don't ride through the camp. I go around the camp, right? I pay attention to the geometry and the spawn placement and the patrol paths, right? Because this world is dangerous. I should respect it and I should pay attention, which is a lot more engaging than just flying over everything, right? Which is super boring, right? It's like, I'm just auto flying towards my next destination. It takes the world and the sense of challenge and difficulty and that sense of danger completely out of the experience. I don't have to pay attention anymore at all. So Daze does good work in the sense that if you remove it, then you can just blitz through every camp because your movement speed is faster than everything and you won't ever be in danger. You won't have to think. You won't have to strategize how to get through the zone, pay attention to terrain or anything like that, right? So it's super annoying to get dazed and knocked off your horse and have to kill something and then get back on your horse and keep riding. Super annoying. But the work it does on the other end is really valuable, right? So that's an example of, again, like, is it just in there to pace you or is it there to create a gameplay experience, right? And that's what you have to kind of evaluate when you're done with the particular elements.
Yeah, Daze, I can see it. But inside of like horrific visions, for example, it's like I don't see that because when you bring up pacing, that was kind of that annoyance. I feel like it's all pace driven. I feel like it's to keep you inside of that instance a little bit longer, so you can't just overrun it with gear to make sure that loop just takes more time and increase player engagement numbers. And I wasn't sure if I was just being cynical in that regard.
I don't know the specific thing you're talking about, but sometimes there are pacing elements, but and sometimes there are good reasons, like raid lockouts, right? That's purely a pacing element. But what good do raid lockouts do? Like, why can't you raid something every night? Why do they have to be a week? You have to wait, And some of that is for economy purposes. But the cynic in you would say, well, that's because they don't want us crushing the content too fast. They want us to take months to clear, and fully equip our raid guild, right? There's always a tough design question, but you have to ask, what's the purpose of it? Does it do good, or is it just there to slow people down, right? And the bottom line for every dev team is that players can consume content way faster than they can make it, right? And so bad designers will fill the game with pacing stuff that keeps them from finishing it, but it's kind of artificial feeling. Good designers will figure out ways to pace you that feels more natural and feels like it's adding to that sense of accomplishment rather than just pacing you for pacing's sake.
Are you familiar with the corruption vendor?
No.
So basically, there's like this thing that was added, and this is recently into the game. And so corruptions are like this like random buff that can be applied to your gear that like you have no real control over. You just have an item drop and it either has corruption or not. And some of the corruptions are like just extremely powerful, like, increasing your damage by 20% powerful, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Other ones are just, kind of negligible, etc. And there's like kind of, like the more corruption items you have, the more damage you take effectively. And so anyway, people didn't like this because it was random. So they added a vendor into the game, and this vendor, the way it works is that in order to buy a special corruption from the vendor, it sells them on a rotation.
Mm-hmm.
And the rotation is completely arbitrary, and it only sells certain corruptions at a time. So, like, let's say you want to buy corruption, like Haste 3 or something like that. Well, you can't do that because it's not available right now. And it's so frustrating for me to see something like that because it feels so obviously like a retention mechanism.
Right.
That's the way it feels completely to me.
Yeah, and I can't speak to the intent, of the designer that made it, but
yeah,
it feels that way a little bit to me too, right? Like I think like random vendor stuff can be totally cool in places, right? Like if you think about the wandering, vendor that wanders from Westfold through Duskwood to Elwyn, what's his name? You guys might know the, yeah, anyway, he's just a vendor and he just walks between those 3 zones and he has a random green on him, right? And it's like, oh, cool. Like that's a cool little element that you have this traveling merchant and he has a random thing, but it's not blocking anyone's progression. It's just a fun thing that you can come across and makes it feel like the world is alive or whatever, filled with the traveling merchant. Antonio Pirelli, yeah, that's the name. Anyway, and then there's other things that, like might be just designed to slow you down. Like I question the whole corruption vendor thing to begin with, but the fact that it has random inventory that prevents you, or at least is perceived to prevent you from progressing, is a different design entirely. And it's rough.
Yeah, I'm very, I don't know, I'm very cynical about it, especially whenever the rotation is just slightly more than a month,
Right.
It's like, okay, dude, like what's going on here?
Right.
I don't know, man. Like it's just, I feel like there's a lot of things like now they have like the covenant thing where you're not able to swap your conduits, which are basically like your talent trees inside of the covenant. You're not able to swap them except for once a week. And I don't know. I just feel like that sucks.
Yeah.
It feels very arbitrary.
Yeah, I don't know much about the conduit system, but on the scale, like there's obviously a scale of game design systems that you can change and you can't change, right? So there's the whole scale. There's 100% no change, like class and race. Like those are choices you just can't change. I suppose that you can you can spend money to change your race or whatever. But going back to vanilla, it's like you choose a class and a race, and those aren't changeable ever. Like you have to start a new guy if you want that. And, that's acceptable to a number of people, right? That's a meaningful choice that you make that's unchangeable. And then you have your weapon, what weapon you have equipped. Items are completely changeable. You can change those on the fly, anytime you want. As long as you have them, you can swap them in and out. And those are also part of your identity and part of your power kit and how effective you are. So there's the full scope, like of what you can change and what you can't change. And that's shifted quite a bit. Like where all the systems are has shifted quite a bit because talents try to be somewhere in between, right? Where it's like, yeah, you can change them, but it's expensive and the price goes up. And for some people, that's a lot of time and, money. For other people, it's not, and they can blow through those whenever. So the question, I guess, is there room ever anymore for a system that makes you make a choice that you can't change? Can anything be as far left on that scale as class and race, or does everything have to be sort of in the itemization, part of the scale where you can change it between, combats like you can talents now and everything else? So, and that's a tough question to answer for a lot of retail people. A lot of retail people, of course, want maximum flexibility because you just think, well, that's gives me the most advantages when I'm playing the game.
Well,
but
Kevin, I've got a nefarious reason why those systems would be so far left and unchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think, and this is just my opinion, is that many times in calls to stockholders and things of that nature, time logged in and total playtime are metrics that are utilized to their stockholders to justify values.
Right.
And by making these character-specific covenants and abilities immutable and unchangeable for the most part, it creates the opportunity for players to create more alts so that they can feel satisfied that they have the ability to access these things on other characters.
Right.
More alts means more time played. More time played means more time subscribed.
That is very nefarious. Yeah, very cynical, and I appreciate you definitely again tickling my cynical bone. But is it effective? Like, I'm not sure, right? Like, how many people are going to be disgusted with Shadowlands and that approach and that continued game plan to the point where they're quitting? How many people are going to just avoid that alt thing and boycott? Because it's BS, right? Versus number of people that are like just going to swallow that pill and accept that that's the new way to do things. I don't know. Like, it's certainly possible. I'm not saying what you're saying isn't necessarily true or couldn't be true, but yeah, I question, like, what I question is just the effectiveness of those very short-term thinking strategies, right? Like, versus what has been staring them in the face for a decade, which is we used to have 12.5 million subscribers in this game. Like, why do we keep declining, right?
Well,
is it because of some of these short-term strategies that people are just sick of?
You look at those strategies and you look at the line of thought that Rob has, and it's just so easy to look at stats in the wrong way. There's a breaking point with humans, which you kind of touched on. It's like, yes, I can push a player in a system that they like to undergo this type of grind, which is going to cause them to play more. But when you look at some of the ways that you would actually interact with the game in the past, like going back to the old raids, like Asmon talks about all the time, the idea that raid content wasn't really dead. When you played the alt, you actually went through that raid where you were playing with more people. And you know what would increase playtime? After the raid, you're going to talk for 10 minutes, and things like that create all of these hours that have players continuing to move throughout the game. And then you look at these other systems like Islands. It's like, yeah, in theory, you need to grind this system for a real long time. But when you have a shitload of catch-up mechanics that are trying to get players back during a patch, you have systems that make, with RNG, which make it feel completely futile as a player and completely unpredictable when you're going to be able to get a reward to the point where you actually do quit. It's like, yeah, those stats don't mean jack shit. You're looking at them the wrong way.
Yeah. And the gambling mechanics that have popped up over the years are definitely a bad sign. That's really cheap design. Yeah. Titan forging, etc. But also, like, the things we take out of those shareholder meetings, like, those are people talking about, they're talking about business and shareholder stuff that I just don't know how much of that actually trickles down to the development team, right? Because who's talking in the videos? It's usually like J. Allen Brack or somebody like that, where it's like, J. Allen Brack never sits in on design meetings, right? Like, how much does he actually influence? We need more gambling mechanics in the game. Like, I'm just not convinced that there's a lot of that going on. But the perception is that a fair bit of that is going on. Evil Activision has taken over, Blizzard, and influences it really strongly. I'm just not sure. It could be true.
I feel like it's probably true because I don't think he doesn't sit in there and tell them to do that. But I think there's people that are like all the way down the list that are, he sets expectations, and then the people that are directly under him set expectations, and the people that are under him set expectations.
Yeah,
and,
it's possible.
At some point you have that happen.
Yeah. They're like, let's make J. Allen Brack happy by adding more gambling mechanics. That'll get me promoted, right?
Well, it's more that I think that there's this is like my conspiracy theory, is that I think that there are a lot of people that set goals for Blizzard games that are basically metric driven based off of participation. And because they're built around participation metrics, the developers create systems to fulfill those participation metrics. And in doing so, it creates these unfun systems for players. But the reason why the genesis of these systems is through the shareholder and like the top level executive expectations that just kind of come top down.
Right.
That's what I think.
It's definitely an interesting idea. Like, and what's funny is I imagine like being a guy in the trenches, right? And this whole thing came down. Hey, we need to get people playing the game more, and I'd be like, well, no shit. Yeah. Like that's my job, right? It's my job to make the game fun, so they want to play it, right? Like, you're not telling me anything new, you know? Like, am I going to suddenly put on my evil hat and figure out a million ways to like get them addicted to the game rather than, you know, my good-natured hat and well-meaning hat to be like, yeah, if I just make a better game that's fun, then they'll want to play, you know? Like,
that's the problem. Is I feel like that's kind of what happens. Is it's not that they're doing it in order to be evil, but there's like a certain degree of, if you know that you make people wait 3 weeks to get an item, that they're going to play the game for 3 weeks.
Right.
And
it could happen consciously or subconsciously, like you're saying. It's also like it's a sign of a bad designer, right? Like the bad designer who's like out of ideas on how to do it the natural way, like to get people playing because it's fun. Where he's just like, well, shit, I need something in its place, you know. I need something to just keep them hooked, you know.
Yeah, to me, that's kind of like my main paranoia is that, you know, you have like these systems where I don't know, like it just seems a lot to me that that's kind of like what their goals are, is that they want to keep people playing the game longer by like artificially extending content. It's kind of like what I was saying with the corruption vendor, for example, is like, why not just let people go and buy the corruption that they want whenever they want to buy it? There's no logical reason not to, in my mind.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. And I think even with that system, right, I think any time that you don't believe in a system, that's when the knee-jerk reaction comes out to just sprinkle crack on it, right? It's like, fuck, does this system work? Sprinkle crack on it. Throw in as much RNG as possible.
Extra,
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's proven in a lot of ways to be able to increase engagement. And then on top of that, one of the ways that I'm often cynical is I feel like people go, I often think, okay, if I was a developer and I was in this situation, I see the current state of the world, I see the current state of people getting let go, I see all of these things that have happened at Blizzard and the game industry in general, and I go, shit, I better make a pretty good system. Otherwise, I'm going to get let go. And it's like, how do you make a good system? You put the good rewards behind it, and then you just put as much RNG in as possible. And that's a way to kind of try to artificially boost your little loops, player hours, even if it hurts the game as a whole.
I'll tell you a couple funny stories. One is that the quest designers used to joke about trying to sway the item designer to give their quest the best rewards, right? Let me take you to lunch. Let me take you to the strip club, just put the epic on my quest, because then everyone will like my quest way more. Oh, that quest is so good. The story is amazing. And the little animation dance they do at the end is so good, right? But it's just like... No.
Did you ever do an ethics investigation into the guy that took the item designer out for lunch on the warrior class quest?
Yeah, that's right. So, so that's one thing. They used to joke about that all the time, right? And then the other thing is we used to joke about adding the crack. Like how do we get them to pull out their credit card? Like every time it's like, oh, you're not doing enough damage. We'll just whip out the credit card and you can do 10% more damage for 5 minutes, right? But that's all it was jokes back in the day. Like all that stuff.
But now, don't you guys have phones?
Yeah, exactly. So the culture would have to have changed so much. And I'm not saying that it hasn't, and it definitely has in some respects, but it's so disheartening to, for me to believe that, the culture's changed so much, but that's actually the agenda and the strategy is, how do we get people to whip out their credit cards? It's just like, oh, it's so...
Allied races.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious to kind of go back to some of those older stories, how you guys were actually able to plan out the Jagsaw progression the way that you were in Classic WoW. because I always feel like that's one of the most interesting reward schedules that the game had in leveling, where you would just have these moments where it's like, oh, I'm getting super powerful, fall off that ledge, and it's a little bit slower, and then you get back on. Like, how did you guys actually figure out the way to make it feel so like organic and not predictable when you would get those power spikes?
Well, a lot of it was planned around the decades. You know, like obviously the decades brought powerful moments. You know, like 40 is a huge one because you get both your new mount and your first gold medal talent at the bottom of a talent tree, which is usually pretty impactful. So we would plan a lot of that around the decades, and then also we did intentionally, like if you look at new spells, right? New spell ranks, like we planned for like there to be like say 8 levels between 2 frostbolt spells from your trainer, but the low level one, frostbolt 2, we'll say, would progress a little bit, would scale a little bit in power for 4 levels, and then it would stop, and then you'd have 4 levels of sort of a dry spell, and it would start to feel really weak, right? You know, 6-7 levels in, and then boom, you get your next one, and it would feel really powerful, right? So a lot of that was intentional design to just like, again, give that ebb and flow. So by the time the next one came out, you were really excited to get it and could really feel the power upgrade.
Did that exist in many places at the time? Because like it's easy for me as somebody, you know, I went to, I forget what year I graduated. I guess it was like 2015. I graduated from like the game design program, and you know, you look back at WoW, right? Like those are the games you look back at, and it's like that actual idea of not just being like a level is good. It's like these are all going to feel very different, and it's going to actually cause the player to want to play more to get those feelings again. Like, were you looking at anything in particular, or were you guys kind of making up a lot of the Jagsaw stuff as you went along?
Yeah, some of it we'd seen from previous games. Like obviously EverQuest had spell ranks, and they had downranking mechanics, which we copied. Like the idea that it would be cool to have you know, uses for lower level spells at all, you know, different levels. But yeah, some of that was well designed, some of that was we had planned, and some of it was sort of emergent. You know, sometimes we were caught by surprise, and we can only pretend that we had intended it all along, you know. And you know, but it was a mix. But I can say that a lot more of the things that we take for granted as players were intentionally designed. Like I talk about the cave thing, and just lots of little things. Lots of thought went into very detail-oriented stuff that a lot of games don't sweat that stuff, right? But we were put in a position where we had enough time and energy and talent to actually sweat all of those little details, right? Like when you think about just the action of swinging a sword in the game, right? That very basic action and how it feels, and how almost no game that I can think of has been able to equal it over the years. That's because we sweat all those little details, and we put that work in, and it took a long time, and the programmers hated us and artists hated us, but we pushed and pushed, and I think it paid out.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. I have to get ready and go over to my dad's. I'm gonna have dinner with him tonight, so I am gonna have to bow out, boys. Kevin Jordan, thank you very much for coming on and talking about everything.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it, man.
All right,
I will see you guys later.
Yeah, I could pick your brain for like 10 billion more questions, but let's do this instead. Let's do we'll set an actual Allcraft date for sometime soon. Anyway, let me actually do that. So I'll get a DM over to you, and then we'll figure out like when we could actually do an Allcraft, and we'll get to talk about stuff like way more.
Yeah, sounds great.
Dude, it was really nice meeting you, man.
Yeah, you too. It's about time, right?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, wow. Dude, thank you for popping in.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.
See you, man. Yo, and Rob, it was nice meeting you too, man.
Yeah, pleasure. I had spoken to Kevin a few days ago, and he exhibited, an extreme desire to come on the show, and I figured you guys would want it.
Yeah, it's so fun. The
pulled some
timing was
strings
so
between some
funny.
folks I know.
Yeah, dude, it's so funny because literally tonight we were like, you know what, we have to. We literally mentioned it tonight on the show.
Yeah, I was like, all right, well, this is an opportunity. I saw him playing Final Fantasy, so I'm like, all right, man, listen, I'm gonna get you in this Discord. I'm gonna talk to somebody, and then when they don't have a guest, we're just gonna get a moderator who will remain unnamed to drag us in there.
Well, thanks again, Rob. I appreciate it. And thank you again, Rich, for having me on.
Kevin, anytime, man.
See you later.
See you soon. All right, let me make sure I get everybody as friends too while I'm doing this. I'm gonna add you right now. Wait, I don't even know how to. I don't know how to do anything, man. Send for. Okay, cool. Rob, I just sent you a friend request. Dude, thank you, man.
Cool. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon.
Yep, see you later, man.
To quote the great McConnell, what a fucking day. What a fucking day, dude. What a fucking day. Oh my god. I don't know if you guys could tell, but I was nerding the fuck out, man.